Hero Whiskies. Do you remember that? Back in 2020, I shot an intro into a topic and called it Hero Whiskies. And then I recorded my first episode and I released it, and then nothing since. Well, I've got some excuses to come up with tonight, but it does give us an interesting topic for a vPub. I'll explain more and I'll see you in a second. Hello, whiskey folk. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to the vPub. Welcome to Thursday night. It's great to see you all again. Wonderful always to welcome you in for a little bit of quiet whiskey time on a Thursday night. I know that last week, for anyone that was tuning in last week, thank you all for your support last week. Thanks hugely to Scott Adamson as well. And thank you. He's such a hero that I noticed before I went live tonight that he was actually in the comments of last week's video, answering some of your comments too. He's just a fantastic, fantastic ambassador for us. I think as somebody said, not just Tomatin and Kuboken, but for Scotch whisky in general. It was great to spend time with him. Likewise, a couple of weeks before with Roddy. So it's been a couple of guest sessions. And tonight was supposed to be a guest session too. Supposed to be hanging out with Chad and Sara from It's Bourbon Night. Perfect timing this time of year when everybody's looking to make their journey to Scotland, perhaps, whether it's just from elsewhere in the British Isles, whether it's from Europe or further afield. You're all coming in and wondering, what's it like? Where should I go? What should I do? So it was a perfect opportunity for me to get these guys on, especially with their really fresh eyes as bourbon drinkers, right? Chad and Sara to come on and talk about their tour through Scotland. Unfortunately, as I kind of half expected, they've arrived back home, getting over some, travel bug thing, and just a wee bit fatigued and tired, as you can imagine, traveling back across the Atlantic after a pretty exhausting, very much full-on tour. So we've pushed it out to next week. That meant that I had to dip in to the topic list to pull out something for this week, something that I could fly solo with. And as I was deleting a lot of the dead stuff, I noticed that one of the ones right at the very, very bottom that I just never looked at for potentially 2 years was Hero Whiskies, and why I've kind of decided to kind of not go ahead with that, or why I decided back then not to go ahead with it. The more and more I've been processing it, the more I've realized that actually, would it have been really that bad a thing to continue doing? But we'll talk about it tonight. What it does do is it gave me a fantastic snapshot, because in that comment, in that note that I'd made in the list, not only had I listed my brainstorm of what qualified for my Hero Whiskey back then, but it also had the prices of 2020 next to them too. And I know that we've spent a lot of time in the past on the vPub talking about value and talking about prices. And we've kind of laid off it for a few weeks because, I don't want it to be the only thing that we talk about, because it gets a wee bit depressing at times. But it gave me that snapshot in time, and I started to play a little bit, and I started to think about what would the Hero list look like today, and how much has that changed. So there's lots to talk about. But of course, before we get to that, I'm going to jump in to the lounge and welcome some of you beautiful whiskey folk and dedicated barflies. Doc is here. You star, Doc. Good to see you. Maclean Fine and Rare is in talking to class. That's Falscraft. Good to see both of you in over joining in from Germany. Fantastic, Doc. Always great to welcome you, buddy, and good to see you too, class. Ian Bruce is here saying good evening, round of barflies. I like to see the Glencadam 10 on the shelf. Hi, it's over there ready. That's going to queue us all up. That's going to be our starting position for tonight, Ian. Good to welcome you. And Lee J is saying good evening, Roy. And whiskey folk, hoping you're all well. I'm very well, Lee J, and I hope you are too. Highland Hamish is saying greetings from Inverness. Looking forward to a live session in town tomorrow with Tony Singh and Scott from Tomatin in aid of Maggie's charity. Oh, I saw some chatter about that. Is that tomorrow night, Hamish? I hope you have a fantastic time. Make sure you thank Scott for his time that he spent with us last week. I'm sure you will. Craig Dollier is in. Good to see you, buddy. Saying evening. Hello, folks. Good to see you, buddy. I hope you're keeping well. And Menno is here saying, quiet whiskey time. Where's Jimmy Legg when you need him? Bonsoir, by the way. If Jimmy's not in, it would be a surprise, wouldn't it? But potentially he'll be on a wee bit later. The other Jimmy is here. Good to see you, Jimmy Jazz. Hope you're keeping well, buddy. And Whiskey Street Al is in. Good to see you, Al. How are you keeping, my friend? He's just saying hello to everybody and hello to me too. How's things over in Northern Ireland? Al, hope you're keeping well, buddy. Multi-Haggis Muncher is saying good evening to you all and good evening, Roy. Hope you're well tonight, folks. Hope things are going well up at Kinnaird Head Whiskies too. Matthew, and I hope you're good. Rob Smith is saying good evening, Roy and the Barflies. Hope you're all doing well. Rob, good to see you, buddy. Good to welcome you. And Rick Johnson is saying good afternoon from San Francisco, Roy, and fellow Barflies. Rick, I don't think I realised you were joining in from San Francisco. A full 8 hours behind us. Buddy, it's great. It's good to have you. Thank you so much. Hellswind is here. Good to see you, Helen. And there's a wee dram come in from, just as it jumps, it looked like Graham. What was it, Graham? Whiskey Works Graham, good to see you, buddy. Another star from Northern Ireland. Early start tomorrow, so catch up in the replay. Slancha, thank you to you, Graham. And he's bought me a wee dram before he slinks off for his early start. Graham, cheers, buddy. Hope to see you in Glasgow later in the year. Cheers. Slancha bit. And Chris Brook is celebrating being a member of the Barflies for 5 months. And he's saying good evening, Barflies and Aquavite. Chris, it's great to welcome you and thank you for your support through the Barflies. The Barflies is a fully YouTube thing. It exists inside YouTube. And what it does is that instead of me monetizing the videos through advertising, people join the Barflies instead, and I switch off, I toggle off the ads. So you never need to sit through an ad before, after, or in the middle while you're watching the vPub. No ads here. The Barflies keep it ad-free, and I'm very grateful for it. What do you get in return? You get lots of little cool loyalty badges and emojis and things to colour up the chat, and hopefully a sense of enormous well-being. Nonsense. Of course, Jimmy Legg is in here. Hi, everyone in Aquavite. I just actually opened a bottle, which I never do. Jimmy, I hope it's a good one. Is that a Hero whiskey for you? And where's Roy is in? That's my friend Roy from Norway. Where's Roy? It's brilliant. Good evening, Aquavite and Barflies. Good evening, Roy. Good to welcome you in, buddy. Gerben is here. Good evening, Roy. Listen, I want to raise a wee glass because Gerben is, I think, today or yesterday, celebrating retirement. He's finally hung up his boots and he's going to kick back with some nice drams for hopefully a long, long time to come. Gerben, all the very best for your retirement, my friend. Congratulations. Cheers. Daniel Caballeros. Daniel, so good to see you. He's saying greetings from Venezuela. I made it today. Always a pleasure to see you, Daniel. I hope that I'm pronouncing your surname well, Caballero. It's always brilliant to see you in, buddy. Welcome, bienvenido. Neilson Gupta saying really enjoyed last week with Scott. Looking forward to today's live stream. Thank you, Neil. It's always a privilege to have you in. And Graham Young from Canada is here too, saying hi, Roy, and cheers. Okay, good. Welcome, everybody. Settle down. I have a lot of bottles on my left-hand side here that I'm going to tear through as quickly as I possibly can and try and give you a shape of a few dynamics and a few thoughts and just insight into some of the things that we're all having to deal with in whiskey right now. Times are crazy in whiskey. We are all suffering the effects from it being the product of investment. It's been commoditized. It's been it's become an object, something that people possess rather than something that people enjoy. And that's whether it's a collectible bottle, a rare bottle, something in glass, something that's just celebrated by the community, anything. But it's also because the casks are becoming commoditized as well. And the ripple effect from that is becoming more and more serious for us drinkers all the time. And it's hard when we witness things that remind us that that's happening. But it's also harder when we witness things that make us feel like there's opportunism at play too. Because we've not just got this dynamic where whiskey, specifically any whiskey is suffering this right now, but Scotch whiskey, I think, is suffering more acutely than most. We're also seeing high inflation. We're seeing energy prices up. We're seeing dry goods up, casks, barley, glass, uh, transportation, labels, everything, everything to do with making anything. Just the costs of everything are sky high right now, and that's impacting things also. And I suppose that it's reasonable to think that there's only so much that a producer can absorb before they have to pass it on to the customer. So they're two very, very different things, aren't they? Two completely different things. And yet they end up producing the same result for us. Our whiskey choice is impacted, and that's either because of what's available on the shelf, or our whiskey choice is impacted because we have to limit what we can spend. And I don't know how you guys feel. There are plenty of people out there with very deep pockets, but I think there are plenty, plenty, plenty more who don't have those deep pockets and are suddenly having to look in new places for their whiskey experiences. So has that affected Hero Whiskies? Doc is saying, just learned that 2022 had a net price reduction on whiskey, especially Springbank local barley bottlings. Now, it's probably true, Doc, but it probably only if you compare it to 2020 or 2021. If you compare it to any other year, that was a crazy, crazy peak year. And probably what we're looking at with that net reduction, you're probably looking at secondary market prices. When it hit its crazy, crazy peak in 2020 and 2021, yes, we're going to see a net reduction. But that baseline, that price is still very, very high. Certainly much higher than it ever was in 2018, 2019, and arguably much higher than it should be. Welsh Dora's in here tonight. He's saying, "Hola, good to see you, Welsh. I hope you're keeping very well, buddy. It's wonderful to see you in. I love seeing that wee Spanish bull." So, yeah, I do have some excuses to make. You know, it seemed like a great idea back in the crazy times, the weird times of 2020 during lockdown. You know, we were in our homes and that, you know, idle hands and all of that type of thing. And I wanted to come up with a concept that I could sit at home and record quickly, but also that it had real value, something that hadn't been done before and something that could be a little bit exciting for me to do. And eventually the concept of Hero Whiskey came up, and it was actually inspired by the bottle over here, the first Hero Whiskey bottle, that Glencadam 10. A friend of mine was in a shop looking for recommendations. He sent me through what the shop had recommended. Glencadam 10 was one of them. I said, yeah, go for Glencadam 10. It's very, very decent. And he brought it up. We opened it at a barbecue that night. This was summer 2020, so we had to be outside to enjoy our whiskey, if you remember back then. And I was reminded in vivid, vivid ways just how good Glencadam 10 was. To the point that I made sure to replace that it'd been a long time since I'd had it on the shelf, if I'm honest, back in 2020. That I put a bottle on the shelf immediately, and I got to know it, and I just came to love it. So that inspired this whole concept of, this is a hero whiskey. Here we've got a whiskey that is 46%. We know it's natural because it tells us on the label proudly that they do not chill filter it, that they don't add any colour, and there's an age statement on there as well. And you might remember at the time it was early 30s, about £32 or something. But the bottle I bought, maybe not the first, but maybe the second, I actually got for £29. This is back in 2020. It's not 2023 where we are today. It inspired my thinking. It made me do an intro video where I shared my concept of what a hero whiskey was for everyone, and I shared a couple of example bottles. And then I moved on to the context of 2020 and recorded the first episode around that Glencadam 10. It had a fantastic response. You guys, on the whole, seemed to love the idea that occasionally I would bring out a video to celebrate something that I considered went beyond basic expectations of whiskey enjoyment. Flavour first, of course. Quality, integrity, all of it. But value. Huge focus on value. Even back in 2020, that was important. It's become much more critically important today. So why didn't I continue it? The platforms that I have on YouTube is the vPub. And you might remember in 2020, I went from twice a month to twice a week. No one had anywhere to go, and I realized I had to step up. So we started to do twice a week. I went out doing extended opening on a Sunday night, and I started to do weekly vPubs on a Thursday. After lockdown started to ease a bit, after the summertime, I went back to, but I didn't drop back to twice a month. I went to weekly vPubs. That's where it stayed. In order for me to bring you weekly content, and I hope that most of the time you find the topics interesting, I have to bring a topic. I have to bring in a value offering to you. As much as it's great fun to get together and just have this virtual space to hang out every week, we do love it. I love it. I need it. I've become reliant upon it. But isn't it nice if we can have a focal point and also something that gives it evergreen value too? You know what I'm going to say now, don't you? Hero Whiskies were very, very likely to cannibalize a lot of that content. And also, one of the things that I do as a reviewer is recycled reviews. I know I'm delinquent. I've got a lot of empty bottles down there. I need to get on it. I need to get on it quickly. But the recycled reviews as well have that kind of anticipation that if I was to stand up there and review 15 bottles that I've reviewed to you in a review format, again, it's cannibalization. The bigger thing that made me stop in my tracks is that when you do this in YouTube and 100 people tell you that it's good and a handful of people tell you that it's not good, you tend to focus a lot more on the negative, the people that were telling you it's not good. It's just a human condition. It's just what you do. However, it's important that you do pay attention to the negative comments too, because it's not negativity for the sake of people just being horrible. Often these negative comments come from well-meaning people who actually support you. And when they step up and say something, the weight of it can be so, so valuable. You have to go over the emotion and you have to read into it. And one or two of you, maybe you're in tonight and maybe you remember the to and fro, but I paid attention because I fed back to you. You were nervous about the optics of the Hero Whiskies. You were nervous about how it looked and how it ran against the grain with a lot of the content on the channel and how much I valued and wanted to protect my integrity and independence as a whiskey commentator. So the Hero Whiskies, and certainly that Glencadam 10 video that went out, did very much look like a huge advert for Glencadam 10, almost like sponsored content, which I guarantee you, and I think everybody here that's in tonight and watching it on replay know that it was not. It doesn't exist, and it has never existed in any of my output anywhere on YouTube or elsewhere. However, somebody coming in that doesn't know the culture of the channel or what I do looks at this Glencadam 10 presentation and thinks, this is an ad. This is a free bottle of whiskey. He's been promised free bottles going forward, or he's been paid or something. Look, he's got 5, 6, 10,000 views on this video. This is an ad. It's not an ad, and it was never an ad, but I understand. And the feedback there was very, very sobering. I had to think, and I had to think carefully. But also, when I look back on it now, with the benefit of hindsight, what I'm actually looking for with Hero Whiskies was to celebrate the community picks, to celebrate the things that we were really loving, the things that resonated. When someone celebrated, it resonated. I'm not talking about the wonderful special releases and special editions and limited this and limited that. I'm talking about the everyday. I'm talking about the solid foundation that brings people into whiskey and keeps them in whiskey. What I was looking for was an awards platform. That's what I was looking for. I was using a review series to give an award, to stick a stamp on it to suggest this is a Hero whiskey and almost brand it as such. Wee bit clumsy, maybe. But that clearly is what I wanted to do. I wanted to find a way to really shout loudly about the products that were resonating with me. I noticed a comment there from Ian Bruce. That's a great few pointers to have for the points of whisky compass: flavour, integrity, value, and quality. And unfortunately, value is moving up and up and up that list all the time, Ian, isn't it? As it becomes a wee bit more expensive. And Lucas is saying Glenallachie 10 is a true hero whisky. I agree with you, Lucas. It's why it's sitting here over my shoulder tonight. Falsgraph is saying I probably would be too positive about every and any whisky heroes, though I hardly have. My evergreens are probably Classic Laddie and Port Charlotte 10, so hero distillery more like. Big Brook Laddie fan there, class, and I can see why. They're bringing lots of integrity forward, flavour forward product. They've picked up a lot of fans on the back of it, and they're doing very, very well. You might hear it mentioned at some point tonight. And Welsh Toro is saying we really are in a different online place than we ever were a few years ago. We both saw that coming. Some of it I saw coming, Welsh. Some of it I didn't see coming. In 2020, I did not see the sheer weight of cask investment, shysters, crooks, actors, people inflating the bubble beyond. It cannot continue. It can't. And I don't know what the answer is. I really don't. Multi-Mission is saying if it's good, it's good. And when it ticks all the right boxes, it deserves to be celebrated. Although I understand how people not familiar with you and the barflies could be critical. What was interesting about it, Menno, is that it was people that were close to me, people that did know what I was about that reached out to me to say, Roy, it's fantastic. I love the concept, but it's an ad. It seems like an ad. Consider what you're, and it does. If you go back and watch it now, it does. Dan Thompson saying Glencadam 10 is one of my top whiskies. If you hadn't brought it to my attention, I wouldn't have known about it. Evening from Isla, by the way, Dan, fantastic. I know you've travelled up listening to the Dramface podcast. It's wonderful that you've arrived. I'm glad you've got Wi-Fi to be able to participate tonight. Enjoy Isla, my friend. Cheers. I've got a Hero whiskey in the glass tonight. So here's how I'm going to get through these 21 bottles tonight. It's going to need to be fast-ish. It's the vPub, isn't it? But over here, I've cleared a space. The first one up here is a Hero whiskey. The original Hero whiskey, Glencadam 10, it remains a Hero whiskey. I'm going to talk a wee bit about pricing throughout tonight. I'm going to summarise the price in a second. But throughout tonight, all of the Hero whiskies will be put up on the shelf behind me. That's all the ones that were on the original list that still are worthy to stay on that list. And also the ones that I've kind of brainstormed more recently with this topic in mind, they will be put up there too. And then at the end of the night, the front 6 whiskies, I'll put 6 bottles across the front that are my 6 picks. So let's imagine I only ever did 6 episodes or something like that. It's the top 6, the way if I had to wheedle it down, and it's been tough. It's always tough to pick and push some to the back or reject some. It's always really difficult to do that when we love so many whiskies. But I've had to do it. I'll share with you at the end my top 6. Now, this is different from the Permashelf because the Permashelf is much more wide-ranging. It's much more kind of, we need these whiskies on the shelf all the time. What I'm talking about with Hero whiskies is Hero whiskies that meet the proposition, as I've mentioned there, of integrity, quality, flavour, and value. It meets those. It's probably going to have to meet the ABCDs. That is age statement, bottling strength, chill filtration, and D for die. So it's got to be a natural integrity forward product. There's too many to pick. Probably there's going to be a lot of weight on the shelf. Probably you're going to notice that it's not exhaustive and I've forgotten a lot of things and left a lot of things on the shelf over there. Of course I have. I've had to whittle it down. I've managed to get it down to 21. But out of that 21, I will pick a top 6 and that'll be what I lay across the front tonight. All the while talking about context, talking about pricing, talking about what's happened to the Hero whiskies since I picked up the topic in 2020. And where we might be talking about it if it was still existing today. Jimmy Legg is saying, if Deanston and Arran aren't there, I'll be surprised. Well, Jimmy, one of those is in the glass. Let's summarise price first. That was the thing that inspired this topic tonight. When I found that note, it was going to delete it. I was just going to quietly ditch the whole Hero concept thing. I didn't want to have to make up these excuses and share to you why I never where I started something and didn't commit to it. I think it's the only thing that I haven't committed to in the channel. I'm not sure. We're just about to delete it, and then I noticed there was a note attached to it, and the note was the list of the whiskies and the prices next to them. And I got a sharp intake of breath. I'll read out the list to you. My original list for Hero Whiskies was Glencadam 10, of course, Ardbeg 10, Springbank 10, Kilkerran 12, Glenfarclas 15, Ledaig 10, Arran 10, and Deanston 12. Well spotted, Jimmy. So that's 8 bottles of whiskey there. That was just the initial list. And interestingly, there was, when I put out that video, there's a lot of feedback and comments came in about people nominating what their Hero Whiskies would be. And I took a lot of that on board, and I was looking at all of this saying, you know, this is really interesting feedback, and that gives the community gold to mine, not just in the video content, but in the comment section underneath. It was fantastic. But then there's the pricing in 2020 next to them. These are the prices I put next to it. Glencadam 10, £35. In brackets, I've written 29. I was able to pick up a bottle at £29. Ardbeg 10-year-old, 45, in brackets 39, regularly on offer for sub £40. Springbank 10, £40. Kilkerran 12, £35. Glenfarclas 15-year-old, is £54. Ledaig 10, £38. Arran 10, £36. And Deanston 12, £38. That was the price of those 8 bottles back in 2020. So what we can do is we can work out that that's an average price. It's $321 if you wanted to buy that entire collection back in 2020, to give us an average price of £40 a bottle. That's not bad. £40 a bottle. Remember, we're talking about hero status here, hero specifications. That was 2020. Now, for the amount of times that we've been talking about value on the vPub and studying where the value is, we can see that the higher age statement stuff is stretching beyond our reach. We can see how much it's gone up in price. And you might remember when Ingvar Rond joined the vPub a year and a half ago, he was looking at the price increases and realized that it was beyond the 12-year-old and above age statement that was really creeping up in price, but 12-year-old and under was remarkably stable. The bad news is we are not in those days anymore. So I went online, so I checked the usual suspects. I checked my favourites, Tyndrum Whisky, Royal Malt Whiskies. I checked Master Malt. I checked the Whisky Exchange. I just went around checking to see what prices the majority of these bottles were available for. And I took an average, and then I reduced that average because I went closer to the best value. So I'm actually not looking for RRP here. I'm looking for the actual price that we will pay. Let me mention to you, I'm talking about me in the UK here. And I know that so many of you in Europe see different price dynamics, and further afield, especially North America and the rest of the world, you see different dynamics again. Some of the stuff you can get a wee bit cheaper. Some of the stuff is much more expensive for you. It's just what we have to deal with, and we have to factor in the fact that the prices will be different. But I guarantee you, what you're seeing here in terms of price, especially when so much of it is down to the cost of producing it, the increases that you're seeing, when the supply chain ripples out to you, you will see those prices increase closer to you most of the time. Of course, there's different taxes and things like that. I can't really factor that in. But generally, just to caveat that these are UK prices. Glencadam 10, instead of being 35/29, it's now £43. Ardbeg 10, instead of being 40/45, it's now £48. Not a big increase there. Springbank 10, well, I know we can't even buy it just now, but if we did, it'd be £52. And Kilkerran 12 is 50. Glenfarclas 15 has gone from 54 to 73. Ledaig 10 has gone from 38 to 43. Arran 10, 36 to 39. Deanston 12, 38 to 42. If we add all of that up, we're looking at £390 to buy all of those 8 bottles of whiskey now. It's a big jump from the 320, and we're now close to £49 a bottle instead of 40. Inflation is sitting about 10-11%, isn't it, in the UK at least? But we're looking at close to £9 overall increase. Now, some of the bottles, like Arran 10, has only gone up by 3, Ardbeg 10, 3, but some of them have gone up by a lot, such as Kilkerran 12 and Springbank and Glenfarclas 15, for the reasons that we talk about at length. So suddenly we're up closer to £50, what used to be £40, in the space of 3 very strange years. So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to go through, I'm going to factor in all of this, I'm going to look at the pricing, and then I'm going to pick out my 6 bottles, and I'm going to make some form of prediction about what we can see happening in the next 3 years. It's always dangerous when we try to predict, right? But the writing's on the wall for us here. And as I said at the start of this session tonight, there's some things that are understandable, but there's some things that are opportunistic and less so. Jimmy Ledaig is saying, hey, sorry, Jimmy, it just jumped. I hope it was the comment I'd already got. As soon as I touched it, it went from what had frozen, scroll back up. Sorry, buddy, if it's important, please repeat it. Yeah, it's obviously further up. Seb is saying, in the Venn diagram of your Hero and Epiphany whiskies, how much overlap is there? Are you differentiating? Epiphany whiskies for me are different, Seb. Good to see you, buddy. I hope you're keeping well. Epiphany whiskies for me are moments that accelerated my journey or understanding of whiskey in some way, something that really switched the lights on, something that was truly amazing. Epiphany whiskies are a different thing. And it's very subjective too, very personal thing, because it tends to be so much more about the moment, and the whiskey can sometimes be a wee bit incidental in that, but it doesn't matter, because the next time you sip that whiskey, it takes you back to the moment, and that's what renders it an epiphany whiskey for us. Hero whiskies are about objectivity, objectively good quality, integrity, flavour forward whiskies at a very good value proposition. Good to see you in, buddy. I hope life in Portugal is treating you well. And Whiskey in the West Coast is saying, is that a Glen Breton? Battle of the Glen, 15-year-old over your shoulder. Had a wonderful visit at the distillery last fall. Indeed it is. It's a gift from a very dear friend by the name of Graham Young. Fantastic, wonderful to have that wee bottle. Great story behind it as well. Welsh Taurus saying, we are stuck at Youngish Whiskey today unless we keep a beady eye on independent bottles and their websites. Red Mordecai is saying, seriously, I don't understand how anyone would disagree with this list as all being Hero Whiskies, integrity bottlings at fair prices. Even at the elevated prices, objectively, Reb, you're still quite right. But it remains the case that we're close on 20% price increase in the space of just 3 years at the lower end of the market. Admittedly, maybe you'd argue that Glenfarclas 15 isn't, but at one point it was a 50 quid bottle of whiskey, and now it's 70 plus. Ian Bruce is saying, is there higher hikes on those like Glenfarclas with directly fired gas stills? You know, maybe, and that's how they recover the cost. This whiskey was made 15 years ago, but that's not how it works. You know, they're not recovering the money that it cost them 15 years ago. They're recovering money today in order to pay for the operation today. Does the direct firing of the stills cost that much? It will cost more, there's no doubt, but it's probably incremental. It's a much bigger thing. It's the bottles and the labels and the shipping and everything else that goes with it. It's the barley. And obviously the scarcity of barley. There's a war in Ukraine right now, so that pushes the price up. There's capacity issues with maltings across the country. That pushes the price up. So all of these has an effect. We have to keep all of that in mind. Molasses Mike is pointing out exactly what I was mentioning. £390 is a bargain for the 8 bottles I mentioned compared to what you'd have to pay in the US. So it's about $390 today. I think it's about, I don't know, $450. Greg's Whiskey Guide, good to see you, Greg, in France. Inflation, Roy, but also greedy distributors too sometimes, I have to say, as some do have scandalous margins. It's exactly the same point that I think Mike Molasses was making. And Danny Keenan is saying, cheers, Roy, and all the Barflies celebrating being a member of the Barflies for 3 months. Good to have you, buddy. Thank you for your support. Toby Anderson, that looks like a new name. Shouldn't Bunnahabhain be on that list? Remember, Toby, good to have you and nice to welcome you into the vPub. I did say it was not exhaustive. So we will push it out a bit. We're going to take that list, that original list of 8, and see how many has lasted, how many are still on the list today, and how many have made it through to my top 6 in 2023. Will Bunnahabhain 12 be there? Let's wait and see. Let's start. It's easy to get rid of 2 off the list straight away, and this is a shame, because when it comes to Hero Whiskies, these are outstanding, fabulous, amazing Hero Whiskies. It's hard for me to talk about Springbank and Glengyle on the vPub because I get so much comments coming back to people saying, oh, why are we still talking about the stuff that we can't buy? It's all hype. It's not hype. It's not hype at all. It's consensus. There's a big, big difference between talking about something positively and talking about something and over-egging things, gilding the lily. That is hype. When you take something, you exaggerate its value proposition. That is hype. When you talk about Springbank, you just give it the words it deserves. Yes, Springbank has become a commodity. Yes, it's difficult for us to get our hands on it, but it's starting to change. We're starting to see more on the shelf. We're starting to see this 12-year-old Kilkerran, this 10-year-old Springbank, albeit occasionally, still a rare sight, but it does occasionally pop up. Even if you choose to go to secondary market for it, you're only paying a little. And I hope that the little, I'm not encouraging you to go and pay more than retail at secondary, but I hope what it means is that it's not appealing for people to try and make £4 or £5 on a bottle, especially when it's so hard for them to get at retail. It's not interesting for them to do that anymore. I hope, maybe I'm being naive there, but I'm starting to see things soften, and I hope that these become a wee bit more available. The fact that they're not going to make it up to this shelf is heart-wrenching for me because they absolutely deserve to be there. They are absolute heroes, and the reason that they are so difficult to buy and held in such high esteem and high regard by the community and beyond, and the flippers and investors, is because of the quality of the whiskey. They know from the people that know how good this liquid is. Got a wee table down here to the side. So the things that, it's not because they're not necessarily Hero Whiskies, but something has happened that mean that it's, if I was to step up and make a Hero video in whatever year it would be, since 2020, I would just be frustrating my community to talk about Springbank and Glengyle. But they do. I think everyone agrees that they remain Hero Whiskies and Hero distilleries, to be honest. Right, George is saying, can I get a Bunnahabhain or Lefroy on the list? We'll see what we can do for you, Rick. We'll see what we can do. Immediately. This is easy to forget. When we are looking for a sherry experience, right? When we're looking for something that's going to kind of bring that sense of nice sherry, delicious, jammy, fruity richness, we tend to find ourselves strolling around the Speyside region, don't we? And we are often left a wee bit disappointed with the lack of availability. And even if it is available, the prices tend to be pumped a wee bit. I think, while this is not exclusively sherry matured, it is very much the style. And when you sip Bunnahabhain in company, in isolation, in contrast with other whiskies on its own, it always surprises you. For me, Bunnahabhain has never been my favourite of the 3 distilled distilleries, because I'm speaking about the core range entry level, 12-year-old here, Tobermory 12, Bunnahabhain 12, Deanston 12, Ledaig 10, because this has always been a softer creature. It's always been a little bit more gentle and rounded. In recent times, there has been dips in Bunnahabhain 12 in the past. It didn't make the list originally, but in recent times, I think we've seen a nice settling of Bunnahabhain 12 to the point that it is an absolute core favourite. It almost won the Oswaz Scotch Whisky of the Year last year, just pipped at the post, you'll remember, by Glen Scotia Victoriana. It's a fantastic whisky, and for it not to be on the hero list would be an omission, I think. So there you go, fella. I hope that helps you, and you've got your Bunnahabhain on the list. And the one that's in my glass tonight is a sibling from Distell. I often worry that something is going to change at Distell. I'm very worried about the CVH thing that's happening right now. We remain to just see what's going to happen there. New ownership's in, clean slate, and what is it they say about a new broom sweeps clean and all of these things. We're a bit nervous, perhaps. I'm nervous because we have had treat whiskies from them for years now. Whether it's Deanston, whether it's Bunnahabhain or Tobermory making Tobermory and Ledaig, they've been wonderful. For me, this has been, if you've been following me and vPub or whatever for long enough, you'll see that that's what I've finished in the glass, how much I enjoy Deanston 12. Again, similar presentation to the Bunnahabhain, albeit this is bourbon focused, but this is 46.3% ABV. We believe it to be all natural. They tell us that it's unchill filtered, but I would really like them to tell us that it's natural colour as well, but they don't. However, I do believe it to be fully natural coloured. It's lovely pale. It's very similar to the glencadam in colour. But if you see the Deanston 12 that's on the shelf today, it's super dark. There's batches of Deanston 12 coming out right now that is very, very dark. So dark that you would suddenly think that it's a sherry bomb, but it's not. That's the casks that they're using. It's natural colour, so they embrace the colour variation, and it's wonderful to see. It's going to be wonderful to enjoy and explore and see how it's different from these lighter expressions. Of course, Deanston 12 remains a hero. Did it make the top 6? It hasn't. Sorry to be a spoiler, but it's amazing to me that I've made a list of 12 and Deanston, sorry, a list of 6 and Deanston 12 isn't on the list. Amazing. Reb is saying, are the price hikes outside the UK as well? Prices in Israel are still edging down, but still on average some 10 to 20% higher than the UK for core ranges and 50% higher for more limited editions. And what we're also dealing with here, Reb, when we come to international markets, is the exchange rate. So sometimes the pound is really strong, sometimes the pound is really weak. And it's not about the moment, it's about when that stock made it into its export country at what exchange rate. Of course, sometimes there's scrupulous distribution and retailers and things, unscrupulous, sorry. But we also have to factor in exchange rates too. And then also to complete the Distell trio, the fantastic, the amazing. Now, of course, it's older sibling. Ledaig 18 is my whiskey of the year. But even this 10-year-old, again, 46.3%, just fantastic whiskey, fantastic value. And it's just an easy, lazy thing just to get out the way very early on to say it's a hero. It's an absolute hero. This, you can put this, even today, Ledaig 10-year-old is £43, up from 38 a few years ago, £5 more expensive, excuse me, on the retail price. But you can put this up against its peers from Islay and its peers from the Highlands, and it does very, very well, sometimes exceptionally well. A terrific whiskey, and you know about it, but you would also probably agree with me that it's a hero. Steve Gibson is saying Annock 12, £28 at his local Spa. I would argue with you that that is too cheap for Annock 12. It's too cheap. And I think that there's a pressure on producers when they're working at these kind of higher volume, low margin type things. And Annock 12 isn't that high volume. But when the margin is too low, you know, I think it's a wee bit, it's almost like bring us the Annock 12 at 34 and then bring the prices down of the other ones, the more expensive ones in the range, the other stuff from Knockdo, right? I don't know how you feel. Listen, we don't knock a bargain. We all love a bargain. But Sevi just messaged me recently to say, have you seen that? I think it was on Amazon, but don't quote me. Old Pulteney, 12-year-old single malt, albeit at 40%, the same as the Annock 12, but it was at less than £22 on Amazon. That's fantastic. But what's that doing to the quality? What's that doing to the strength and the integrity of the business? What's that doing to so many things? I hate to say the words it's too cheap, but I do feel like, and I don't want to take a bargain away from anyone, but I do feel like, is that what they're chasing? That can't be healthy in these days. Kiwi Gor is in. Kiwi Gor, you bought me a dram last week and I missed it. I'm so glad that you're in tonight. He's celebrating being a member of the Barflies for 12 months. He's saying cheers, but Barflies around the world. Thank you for your warm words and your spirit. Thank you for your virtual dram last week. I picked it up when I was going through afterwards and putting the timestamps in, and I'm sorry I missed it. Cheers, Kiwi Gor. Let's keep moving. Let's keep moving. All Distell products make it alongside that glencadam. Absolutely deserved so. Here we have the Glenfarclas 15, originally a hero from my original list. And what had happened is that this bottle, by the way, the one I'm drinking right now, is a good Glenfarclas 15. And fans of Glenfarclas, and specifically fans of the 15-year-old, will know what I mean when I say that. I'm not being negative. All I'm saying is that Glenfarclas, they seem to embrace batch variation. And I'm not just speaking about colour, I'm speaking about profile. It can change sometimes quite dramatically. 2 bottles ago, I had a quite sulphury one that I struggled to get through. And it was only through tasting a bottle with someone else that I worked out that it was fabulous, and I bought a bottle and it made it onto the Hero Whiskey list in 2020. That bottle's since been replaced, and I'm halfway through another one, and I'm glad to report that this one is also very tasty too. But we have a different value proposition here. This is now £73. And there's a couple of whiskies in a very similar category and flavour profile that's going to come later in tonight's vPub that will not surprise anyone. You can probably guess what I'm going to bring out. But completely just take this off the shelf. Sorry. The hero status of this was good quality sherry forward whiskey at a very good, hovering around £50 to £53. It was difficult to ignore. That was a good whiskey and an easy one to recommend. Now that it's up at £73 and higher, honestly speaking, I've seen it. Some of the retailers have got it much higher than that. Obviously, it depends on some retailers they offer a different value proposition. They offer more hands-on advice and bricks and mortar environments and things like that. But it can be much, much higher than that. Sorry, there's too much competition for it now. If I had made that Glenfarclas hero video back then, it would have been very contextual to the time of 2020 and the price it was available then. Jim Whiskey Novice is in saying price and quality are 2 easy counters for Hero Whiskies, in my opinion. Most Loch Lomond expressions, most Distell expressions, Annock, Glencadam, Craigellachie 13. It can be a long list, but it's not really. It is a long list, actually, Jim. And as I've been going through and talking about all of these things tonight, all of these, I've had to make, I can only physically fit 20 bottles on this table beside me. Any further than that, they're falling off the sides. So it meant that some of them didn't make it. If somebody came to me and said, I need £40, less than £40, I need a really good whiskey, this is my style. There's 3 core ranges from Loch Lomond: the standard 12-year-old, the Inchmurrin, the fruity style, and the Inchmo and the peaty style. They're just easy recommend ones right now. Easy to recommend. They are getting closer to the point that they just ditch the reliance on colouring. The quality that's coming out of Loch Lomond is creeping up and up and up. And it's not just about all the focus that they pour into the distillate, but it's also, they've got an on-site cooperage, it's also the focus that they're putting into cask and cask quality. It's inevitable we're going to benefit from that, but it's inevitably that the whiskey liquid will benefit from that too, and hopefully they rely on colour less in the future. I absolutely agree with you. Loch Lomond will not feature in this vPub tonight, but it is absolutely worthy. Likewise, its distillery, its sister distillery down in Campbelltown, Glen Scotia. In my view, 2 of the most remarkable Renaissance distilleries out there, and we're loving witnessing that Renaissance happening. There's a Michael H in tonight. I wonder if that is he's just commented now. I wonder if that is the Michael H behind the Renaissance at Loch Lomond. Anyway, let's move on quickly. I've got another 3 to get through. And what I'm going to do is we get through these and they start building up over the side. I'm going to share with you how it affects the price. All these new ones that I've brought out, how are they coming out? Are they closer to the £40 back in 2020, which is the average bottle price, or are they closer to the £50 average bottle price in 2023 that list ended up being? Or are they somewhere in between? And then the final 6 that I pick, it's been a tough choice, but I've picked it if I just had to commit. I'll just come up with what the average price of those bottles were as well. And if you wanted to go out and buy the 6 of those bottles, what it would actually cost. Not suggesting anybody does that, but it does give us a very, very good idea of price and where it's moving. Luna Arran is in from Germany. Good to see there is a Loch Lomond 10-year-old from Drink. I don't know how to pronounce that, but that's the Dutch retailer, isn't it? Which is just marvellous. Do you get it in the UK? I don't. Loch Lomond 10-year-old. I think there is a 10-year-old, but it's a 40% supermarket whiskey, if I'm not sure. The Hogsheads is saying it's pricey for a 12-year-old, but the new natural Royal Brackla 12 is certainly worth the money for me. Spoke about it, Alex, at length. Very sherry style, although I think they rely a wee bit more on finishing rather than maturation. That's fine. I think to move from where Royal Brackla was to that new 12-year-old fully natural is a huge step up. It doesn't appear tonight, but it's fantastic that you're here to give it a deserved shout out. If they could bring that price a bit tighter, then I say that. We're going to get into a discussion tonight that redefines what the cost of a 12-year-old malt whiskey is, so it's going to be interesting to see how other things catch up to the price of that Royal Brackla. In my memory, it's about 60, 65 pounds, isn't it? Falscraft is saying, my impression is that traders' ability to make deals is becoming more important these days, which is sadly tough for small shops and pushes good but big online suppliers. I need something else in the glass. What am I going to pour? Yes, I'm going to pour one of these three. You know that this has to appear on the list. This is on today's hero list. It was on the hero list back in 2020. To talk about it almost seems, it's almost like it's every vPub we managed to mention this whiskey. But there's a reason for that. This is still £38. It's fully natural. It's got all the specs, the ABCDs are in place, and everybody is celebrating it. Yes, it's very sweet, very accessible. It's an absolute crowd pleaser of a dram, but it's delicious and the quality is there. It's Arran 10, and nobody could ever deny that this has become a modern hero in every metric. Fantastic stuff. What's remarkable to me is that since this rebranding, it's been remarkably consistent in quality, profile, and style too. And I was a wee bit worried with all the hype. It's not hype. I'm correcting myself. All the consensus, all the chatter, all the celebration around Arran 10, they would struggle to keep up with demand, but they have kept it on the shelf. They've kept it on the shelf at £38, and they've kept the quality remarkably consistent. It's a naturally coloured product. There's no added colour here, and the colour is also very similar too. That points us heavily towards a lot of investment in good quality casks, I believe, in my opinion. Absolutely, Arran 10 goes on the hero shelf. Fantastic stuff. Here's another modern hero. And I think if I didn't give this a mention, I would see a lot of complaints from you, because a lot of you love this stuff. It's your favourite whiskey, a lot of you, and I understand why. This was expensive at launch, but everything else has caught up with it now. Some people might have to pay £50, £54 for this now. Most of the time you can get it sub £50. Look for those prices. This is an entry from Dewar's, one of the big producers out there, but they've brought us this fantastic presentation along with their fantastic Altmores and their fantastic, we just mentioned it, if Alex the Hogshead was talking about how they've redressed Royal Brackla and made it much more natural. We would love to see the same from Aberfeldy too, but Aberfeldy remains a different thing and something that's not very often talked about. Everybody talks about this. This is a natural product. 13 years age statement, 46% ABV. It's got that lovely, you don't pick it up often in isolation, how robust and bold this is. It can be quite light and delicate, and then you sip it alongside something else, and you suddenly get these weird, savoury, beefy notes. You get this quite unctuous, kind of almost gloopiness to it. It plays very, very well as a wonderful malt whiskey. It's just a fantastic example. And when there's slim pickings coming out of Speyside, it's fantastic to have this on the shelf. It's a wee bit pricier. It's going to push our average price up a wee bit right now, but it's on the hero shelf. Do you agree? Let's add one more to that before we move on. This is another crowd favourite. Again, if it's another one that if I didn't talk about it, if I didn't celebrate it, there would be complaints. 50% ABV, that's going to give you a clue. A 10-year age statement, fully natural, full traceability too, if you want to put the effort in to go and search. This is, of course, the amazing Port Charlotte from Bruichladdich. I'm often amazed that there isn't a Bruichladdich, a fruity Bruichladdich equivalent with a 10-year age statement. I wonder why they're holding off, because the classic laddie is doing so fantastically well with an on-age statement and having some younger malt in there. I'm not sure. This is wonderful stuff with a 10-year age statement on it. Bruichladdich, please don't change this. I've gone from being, this was on the periphery, this was a tertiary whiskey for me, this was something that was only ever occasionally on the shelf. Along with Ardbeg 10, this has become a peaty Islay guardian for me. I think it's fantastic. This is potentially the best bottle of Port Charlotte 10 I've ever had. I'm absolutely quite shocked at how good it is. I think I would be recommending this to anybody right now. Port Charlotte 10 right now, did I put down a price for it? £55, pushing the average up a wee bit there. The only thing I'll say is that, remember, it's a 10-year age statement, yes. 55 is expensive for a 10-year-old, yes, absolutely. But we are getting 50% ABV there. A wee bit more whiskey in it, and it's now showing us how good a whiskey it can be. Does it make the hero shelf at £55? It doesn't make my top 6, but it does make the hero shelf. Jimmy Ledaig is saying, what do you think about Tyree's review of the Port Charlotte 10 on Dramface? It was nowhere near what I get. I don't even recall Port Charlotte 10. Was it part of his tour of Islay? I thought that was a brilliant piece, Jimmy. And the thing about anybody, whether it's here in the chat, whether it's in the comments, whether it's me speaking live, whether it's anybody writing out there, what they're doing is they are writing the truth, their truth, their absolute truth. Doesn't always agree with the people watching, listening, reading. What it does do, and where it is valuable, is spark debate, especially when we're polite about it. It's interesting, Tyree, what you get from that. I don't get the same thing. I get more of this, and you can add your take on it as well, because that doubles up the value for anybody watching, listening, or reading, doesn't it? Because they see that interaction and they see the discourse and the debate happening over it. For a lot of people, there are people out there that are super sensitive to peat smoke, and they're never going to enjoy peaty whiskies, or it's going to take them a long time. There are people out there that are sensitive to sulphur. I thought I was a wee bit, but I'm remarkably, I seem to be a lot less sensitive to sulphur than I once was. There are a lot of people out there that are sensitive to lactic notes. And Bruichladdich has always been a distillery that can display those notes, whether it's in their peated expressions or their unpeated expressions. It's just fact. It's what they're known. And when you get a single cask, or when you get an expression that really amplifies that, people that are not sensitive to it, or that quite enjoy it or taste it as something different, love the stuff, and other people can't drink it. That's one of the reasons that Bruichladdich can be a wee bit divisive, in my opinion. What say you, Jimmy Ledaig? It was part of his tour of Islay. I normally am right in line with Tyree, but this Port Charlotte 10 was way off. Super interesting. I hope one day, Jimmy, that you get a chance to raise a dram with our Tyree. I think he's an absolute treat of a writer. The stuff that he writes for Dramface, I can't imagine anybody else being able to do it and bring the same content that he brings. David Brody is saying nobody is officially wrong. I think there's a lot of truth in that. And I think one of the wonderful things about whiskey is that we're mindful of it and we respect it. And we are quite happy for people to taste different things from us and even to judge things differently from us. It's nice when we get consensus, isn't it? But it's okay for it not to be the case. Falscraft is saying it took me a while to start commenting at Dramface. Funny, considering the YouTube comments from me are myriad. I'll enter more discussions now. I think it would be wonderful, Falscraft. Let's take a minute to talk about Dramface. I'm so proud of the team at Dramface. They're remarkably generous people. They just put in their time. And I'm not just speaking about the time it takes to put those amazing articles and reviews together, to go out and source the whiskey and contemplate the whiskey and then write about it, then take photos of it and share photos and then give it a score and do all of that stuff. It comes into Dramface and it's got to be built up. It's got to be made into an article. It's got to be sub-edited. It's got to be cleaned. There's housekeeping and social media sharing, and then the website's got to be working. And it's a whole team of people behind Dramface. And we're a year and a half in now, and we're still happy. We're happy doing it. And it's becoming more meaningful all the time because we're starting to find our groove. We're building up a deep, deep back catalogue of value now. We need to find ways of making it much more searchable, much easier to expose how much content is on that website now. Maybe look at infinite scrolling. Maybe look at making the really clunky inbuilt native search engine a bit more easy to use rather than something you have to figure out in order to use it well. But can I ask a favour of all of you? If you enjoy Dramface, please share. Talk about it loudly. Because without it being successful, without doing well, independent opinion on whiskey is very, very valuable. It always has been, but arguably it's more valuable today than it's ever been because things are more complex today than they've ever been. Please share it. Talk about it. I want more traffic. I want more eyes to see Dramface and to realise what we're building there. The writers and the team behind Dramface deserve it. It's going fantastic. It's growing very, very well. Some of the team are in here this very night. Some of them you know, and some of them you don't know, of course. But it's wonderful to have that thing. Gordon Fraser is saying he's celebrating being a member for 15 months, and he's saying groovy Dramface beauties. Terrific stuff. Rob Halford is in as well. Anybody that knows Rob, he's very much part of the Dramface team, and I'm glad to have him about. Rob Halford is the voice that you sometimes hear on the podcast too. There you go. I didn't even mention the fact that part of Dramface we're building the podcast too. Gregor hosts a great fun podcast that we all love doing. Terrific. Stephen Gibson is celebrating Dramface. Terrific stuff. Terrific. It's good to see you, Stephen. Good to see you enjoying Dramface as well. Right, let's move on a wee bit. Let's switch up a bit because I want to switch up these whiskies. I think that the majority of things here, I'm going to get no argument from you about them whatsoever. These are very predictable, right? A few omissions here tonight. Absolutely, there's a few omissions. That's a great thing about it. But look at it. These are all rock solid Hero whiskies. Objectively so. And yet, since 2020, things have been moving on, haven't they? And it's not all bad. There are good things happening. What good things are happening, Roy? New whiskies are coming. New whiskies are appearing. There are some whiskies still to come out tonight that did not exist in 2020. I think all of these, without exception, existed back in 2020. It's wonderful to have that reassurance and that consistency to see them still here. But there's new things. Some of them are very new. Look at this. Wolfburn's 10-year-old product. You might remember I opened this with Roddy on a vPub a couple of weeks ago. And I've only had maybe 1 or 2 drams since out of this bottle. And I'm enjoying it fine. Still getting my head around it. Now that it's been open a couple of weeks, it might start to open up a little bit. But what we've got here, presentation-wise, is fantastic. So what we're looking for is quality. We're looking for integrity. We're looking for flavour, and we're looking for value. So let's see how our Wolfburn stacks up. Integrity, check. Absolutely. There's a bit of farmyard on this one. I remember when Roddy and I first stuck our nose in it, all we got was that big blast of malt. That was the neck pour. That is subdued a wee bit, and we're getting some citrus, some sweet lemon maybe, some orange. But there's a farmy note that overrides things. This is settled down a wee bit, I'm sure. Good texture, a little bit of spice, good spice, good grip. But there is something here. There's something, almost a sense of a hollow in the development. There's just something that's not quite there yet. I think this is amazing that Wolfburn are putting out a 10-year-old product. But the oldest whiskey that Wolfburn has is about 10 years old. I don't know. I'm not aware if they've got any 11-year product. So we're not in a position here that, and I know that this sounds so frustrating, and I'm sorry if you're tuning in from Wolfburn, because this is minor. I want to celebrate the fact that you're putting out a 10-year-old whiskey. Honestly, I think it's incredible. However, we have a problem here, and I think it's a big problem, and it needs to be talked about. I want to hold this whiskey up, and I want to celebrate it, because this is a torchbearer for our future, that our new distilleries are going to be coming along, that are willing to put age statements on things, that are willing to bring us more mature whiskey in the bottle. And that's exciting. But I paid £65 for this. £65. Now, you might argue, wait a minute, this is a small batch. Sorry, I don't care. £65 for a 10-year-old whiskey. You might argue that their core range that's based on non-age statement products is sitting anywhere between £45 and £55. So it makes sense that the 10-year-old is going to come out at 65. Sorry, I don't buy that either. I do not buy that either. If you're going to bring out a £65 10-year-old whiskey, there needs to be a justification behind it. You need to be able to reach out, because what it seems to me like that you're trying to raise the bar for a 10-year-old whiskey. At £65 is not the price for a 10-year-old whiskey. I'm sorry. It's too expensive. Now, I think a lot of people will do, this one will do quite well. A lot of people will be keen to go out and grab their 10-year-old Wolfburn. It's very popular on the continent. It's growing in popularity here in the UK, quite rightly, because the product's becoming more mature. And we've celebrated Wolfburn in the past on the vPub. It's becoming more mature, and it's finding its groove more and more. This is too expensive. We've been told time and time again from different producers that their non-age statement whiskies are going to be a little bit expensive. They're going to be up there next to the 10-year-old and 12-year-old price points, because that's the cost of producing the whiskey and bringing it out. The cost of maturing the whiskey is incrementally much smaller. So when they are able to bring out a much more mature product, 8 years old, 10 years old, 12 years old, whatever that may be, whether it's age stated or not, whether it's just that that's much more mature malt in the vatting, the price won't change. The maturity of the liquid in the bottle will catch up with the price, and the price won't increase. Now, of course, the price has to increase because of raw materials and energy and inflation, everything else that we've been talking about tonight. But it doesn't go from 45 to 65. I honestly feel, and I want to be proved wrong, that this is opportunistic, and I don't think it's right. I don't think it's right. I think it's just pitched too high by a full £10, I would say, and I think that's a shame. One of the reasons I never connected with Ardnamurchan 12 for years was the fact that it was a £55 bottle. Okay, it's decent whiskey. Ardnamurchan 12 is decent whiskey, but this is younger. And there's at least in Ardnamurchan, they have the ability to go into their warehouse and get some casks of older stuff to fill in that development, that hollowness, that sense that something is missing sense from some of the batches. Wolfburn are not there yet. I put it to you that I think Wolfburn are charging a wee bit too much, and that's a shame, because it's a distillery I really want to continue to get behind in the future as well. It doesn't make it. Daniel Williams is saying, on the train from Scotch Malt Whisky Society tasting, fantastic evening. Glad you enjoyed it, Daniel. Brilliant to have you joining us here. It's always great to welcome you in, buddy. And Whiskey Wings is saying Lindors and Ardnamurchan. Different proposition. No age statements on any of them yet. Absolutely, Whiskey Wings. There may be age statements come from those guys in the future, but again, these are the producers that have openly talked about the fact that the price that they're charging just now is the price that they need for their core range. You could talk about optics, you could talk about non-age statement whiskies being on the shelf and then suddenly an age stated one and being a similar price, but the age statement one is going to sell. The age statement one is going to make the non-age statement ones look cheaper and things. But sorry, they've been telling us for years that the non-age statement stuff, don't ignore the fact that it's non-age statement. It's just the whiskey is very, very good. They're leading on flavour. It's all about flavour, flavour, flavour. And then they finally put an age statement on it and suddenly charge £10 more. That directly throws shade on everything that they've been saying about their non-age statement stuff as well. Stand proud about your non-age statement stuff that you've been selling for years. Put the 10-year-old alongside it. Maybe charge a couple of pounds more, sure. But 10 or 15 pounds more, 20 pounds more is bang out of order. It's too much. Andy Cross is saying, do you mind paying extra for Glenturret? We're going to get to that, Andy. We will get to it. And Greg's Whiskey Guides Kilchoman are also expensive when you're going beyond the core range, to be honest, and many others too. I also refuse to pay new Japanese distilleries proposals at 150, 250 euro for a 3-year-old. That's just the fact that they can put a Japanese name on the label. Greg, we are not that naive. I know, buddy. I know what you're talking about. We will talk about Glenturret tonight. Like I said about the Wolfburn, if you're going to charge £65, you have to be vocal in how you justify that. This is an okay whiskey. It's a drinkable whiskey. I'm not in love with this whiskey. I reserve the right to change my mind about it. I always do. Whiskey changes. It develops as you get to know it. It develops and changes as it drops. And of course, it's a vPub, so I'm pouring and sipping. Maybe if I left it for a while and came back, it would develop some more. But I've had a few drams out of this now, and I want to celebrate it. I think it's fantastic. I think it's a benchmark. But if this is going to be their core range and it's going to go up against other fantastic 10-year-olds like glencadam, like Deanston 12, like Springbank 10, like Kilkerran 12, it's not there. It is not there yet. Zach Andrews is saying, cheers, my friend. Glad to have caught this one live. Zach Andrews, I was thinking about you just this very day. Leanne's coming over in a couple of weeks. I hope you're keeping well, buddy. I hope life is treating you well. You deserve it. Thanks for dropping in, Zach. Okay, so where do we go? If I'm talking about new things coming along since 2020's Hero Whiskey episode, what's come along? What's come along? Well, it's not just new distilleries. There's a whole new wave of new things and new ways to bring interesting things to us, but we do have to relax a wee bit. Wolfburn have stepped up and given us an age statement, but I'm going to suggest to you that for weeks and months now, I'd be talking on the vPub, how age statement is a good indicator, but maybe the ABCDs, maybe that A for age statement is a small a now, because we're starting to feel much more confident about judging a whiskey based on the flavour proposition first. If we know the age of the whiskey, if we have a good idea of the ages that go inside the whiskey to reassure us that that's happening, maybe the A is the least important of those four, arguably so in certain circumstances. So if we relax that a little bit, it does open up a lot of things for us. Because I believe, and I'll put it to you, that a hero whiskey can be a hero whiskey without a big age statement on it. Let me give you some examples. Blended malts. Look at these. Fantastic blended malt from Loch Lomond Group, and interestingly. They've just brought out a whole range, 46% ABV. They brought out a Smoke Symphony, which is a Rioja finished peaty one. They brought out this Hazelnut Harmony, that's a very nutty one. And they've brought out an Orchard Outburst as well. All 40 quid, all fully natural. Delicious whiskies, affordable, delicious whiskies. You put one up against this Wolfburn 10 or other age-stated whiskies, and you will not be distracted by age. That's my feel. Thompson Brothers have done the very same thing, but they chose to put an age statement on this. This is an 8-year age statement. It's 48.5% ABV. We've talked about it at length. SRV 5. This is like a Solera VAT system. SRV is station road VAT, and what they're doing is they're only partially bottling from it. So every time they top it up with new liquid, minimum 8 years old, of course, it's potentially going to be getting older in feel, older in flavour, older in profile. Again, the price of this, sub £40, fantastic quality. It's been shouted about and celebrated loudly for a year now. Wonderful stuff. So glad to have it. Is this a hero whiskey? Absolutely. And what about this one? 2 years ago, this appeared on the scene and it blew most people away. Some people find it a wee bit spirity. They find it a wee bit young on the palate. Some people love that. Some people love spirit forward. We certainly love fruit forward, don't we? 46% ABV, no age statement here, but again, £42. for this whiskey, and we're all falling in love with it. I think this whole category, when done well, can easily be considered great fodder for the future and great fodder to join these single malts as a hero whiskey. It remains to be seen how they develop. It remains to be seen how confident we are with them. Remember, we're still in the realm of malt whiskey here. There's no grain involved. This is all malts. And what they're doing is they're bringing different malts from different places potentially together in order to make a very full flavour-forward product. Are they succeeding with that? Oh, look how much the community, it's not just me that's enjoying these whiskies, you're enjoying them too. And the price point is right. Age statement or not age statement. If we want to know what's in that Noble Rebel, we could probably send an email off and discover. If we want to know what's in that Orchard House, likewise, an email and discover, or look at the PDFs on Compass Box website. The transparency is there. It's maybe not how they sell the liquid, but it's there. We feel confident because our peers are talking about it and we're enjoying it. Jimmy Ledaig is saying, I don't need an age statement. Just put the distillate date and bottling date on the bottle. You can do the maths, Jimmy, right? You can work it out. Absolutely. Michael Henry is in tonight, but it's Michael Henry now, so maybe that Michael H was a different Michael Henry earlier, or he's changed his YouTube name. Let me go one further. If we're going to make that age statement a small a, let me mention a whiskey, and I had one tonight before I started. When I was setting up earlier tonight, I sipped this just to reassure myself, and I got this lovely peaty creaminess to it. Loved it, loved it, loved it, and I'm excited about it because it's a whiskey that I didn't always love. But this is probably becoming a staple here now. This is Kilchoman's Machir Bay. No age statement, and it's been around for a long time now. How long has Machir Bay been around? Maybe, is it getting on for a decade now? Perhaps. It's been around for a long time, Machir Bay. 46% ABV, and other than an age statement, it's fully natural. They put it right in the front label, non-chill filtered, no colour added. Why am I suddenly excited about this? Because I think, like Wolfburn, the maturity is starting to speak now. I think that the quality of they've always been fighting at Kilchoman to lay down enough for the future and keep up with the present demand. It's always been the case at Kilchoman. Before this whiskey bubble, before all, there's been fans around Kilchoman since the start. This is better and better and better all the time. We're now seeing vintage statements coming out from Kilchoman. We're seeing age statements as well. Yes, as have already been pointed out, they're expensive. But I can pick this Kilchoman up for 40, 45 pounds. Sometimes on offer at 40, usually 45 pounds retail of that order. Maybe RRP is closer to 50, not sure, but I'm telling you just now, if you went to buy it online, I checked recently today, 45 pounds, absolutely. Is it 45 pounds in the glass? Yes, it's 45 pounds in the glass. Sipping it before I went live tonight, there was a lovely, lovely creamy texture to it. It was all citrus, smoke, and peat, and it still has that farmyard element in Kilchoman that's always been there. But where in the past it's ventured a little too close to the kind of green, wet silage farmyard, now we're getting this kind of lovely grass and hay, this warm, this more dry kind of farmyard aspect to it. There's maturity coming through in Kilchoman now, and I think it's getting better all the time. Kilchoman, despite the fact that Machir Bay doesn't have an age statement, is getting put on the hero shelf. Doesn't make the top 6. We've still to get to the top 6. But I think it deserves to be there. McAllen Fine Rare Doc is saying, first Machir Bay I could find was from 2012. Wow, so we're over a decade, Doc. Amazing. Big fan of the Machir Bay. The cast strength version is great. Rob, they've even been able to develop on that and bring us out, which must be harder from a demand perspective, a cast strength version. Loy Pinheiro is in. Good to see you, Loy. He's saying that's true for most of the core range. The Sanic is getting better and better too. Now, other things, Loy, will be a bit different. Loch Lomond is just going to be different each year, I think. But the core range, such as Machir Bay, such as Sanic, these are going to be something that we can always buy, something that we can come to rely on as part of a core range of products. And Whiskey Wings is saying, that's made me very happy, Aquavitae. Obviously, Mike, you're a big Whiskey Wings. It is Mike, isn't it? I think it's Mike. Tell me I'm wrong. I hope it sounds like you're a big Kilchoman fan, and it's good to see it talked about. Maybe that's what you mean. Standard Machir Bay says Falsgraf, €39.80. Fantastic. Oh, cast strength, €71. Quite a big jump. Quite a big jump. It's down to you whether you think the value's there. The amount of volume that's there, that's available for us, is a lot less when it comes to the cast strength. I have to say, a very recent Machir Bay batch, as my bottle is too old, too young, from 2012 release, he's saying. But to be honest, French market version called Loch Lomond kills all the core range. Oh, wow. Kills as in is better than, or turns you off the other way? I imagine that it's a positive thing you're saying there, Greg. And Sugar Kitty saying Aquavitae, and although it doesn't have a hero price to it, 2022 100% Isla is amazing. Buy. The one I have is a 2021. I think I'm just a wee bit short, Sugar Kitty. Yeah, I'm glad that you're enjoying it. Good to have you in. Cheers. Cheers, Greg. And cheers to Mike. He's confirming it is Mike. Fantastic. We've got a wee uncorking. So we've wandered off a little bit, haven't we? We've decided that the age statement can be a small a, maybe, especially in modern times, until a lot of these mature, these stocks catch up. And we've decided that, yeah, it doesn't need to be single malt. A Hero whiskey does not, and it's never been a requirement for it to be a single malt. So I've tried this whiskey a couple of times now, and I know that a hell of a lot of you out there have too. Went into Good Spirits Company and picked this one up. I hope that if you haven't tried it, that you do get the opportunity to get to it in the future. And I hope that you are confident to buy this. I really hope that you're confident. If Greg is confirming it is positive, he's saying it's better, especially for the 40 to 47 euro. A bit like the old Sanic version, perfect combination of bourbon and sherry casks. Ah, fantastic. And Hellswood is saying that's our last bottle of Glencadam 10 finished. True Hero Dram Aquavitae. It's 43 quid for you to replace it, Helen. Tell me if you're up for doing it. And Brian, Kilco Whiskey Musings is in saying Aquavitae fantastic. I'm hoping to join Brian over on his channel. I think we've decided, what did we say, the 4th of June or something? I'll let you know nearer the time. So eventually, I've tried it a few times. Tried it in Limburg. Tried it here and there. That's going to be a lot of noise. Excuse me. Get out the tissue, because we don't have malt whiskey. Some malt whiskey in here, a lot of malt whiskey. There's 70% malt whiskey in here, we're told, but there's 30% grain too. This is a brand new blend from the team at Ardnamurchan. Confidence inspiring right away. We need us to focus on it. So you can see that, there we go, Maclean's nose. Now, Maclean's nose is nothing really to do with Charlie Maclean, although he is closely associated with the product and the distillery. But it's this outcrop of rock out on the peninsula called Maclean's Nose. And there is some backstory to it and things on the label. But what we have here, to kind of hammer home just how much there's a resurgence of interest in blends, spurred on by the likes of the release from Thompson Brothers, their BSW 6-year-old, did that come out last year? A 46% blend, very, very sherry forward. Fantastic value at £33. Here we have another 46% ABV natural colour, unchill filtered blend from the team at Ardnamurchan, and they're putting this out at 30 quid. £30. Thereabouts. I've seen it at 29. I've seen it at 32. That's the price for this blended whiskey. It's got a nice cork. It's got the Dancy Man on top. Bit of a soft pop there. Let's try that again, shall we? That's much better, isn't it? Let's pour it in. Now, I wonder if this is the Ardnamurchan bottles, the old Ardnamurchan bottles before they were embossed. They've just not been etched yet. I wonder if it's the same ones. Maybe not, maybe. Just feels quite similar. Just out the bottle. So you would expect it to be a wee bit quieter, but it's not quiet. It's super fruity. There's even a wee bit of fizz here. There's life to this whiskey. Sweet, not too sweet. Still got that remarkable coastal quality, for want of a better word. I saw somebody talking about how sea breeze was a lazy marketing term to talk about this style of whiskey, but honestly, sea breeze is perfect. And if anybody, you know, I really dislike any kind of vocabulary around describing whiskey being mocked as being a really negative and destructive thing. People should be encouraged to use whatever words they find to express themselves and not be judged on their vocabulary. Um, you know, they should be comfortable to say. So there was a big backlash against using the word smooth. We've had talks within Dramface about using the word grassy, and of course the most recent one was this sea breeze idea. But there's a bit of sea breeze about this wee glass tonight. It's going to take a much, much better palate than mine, somebody much, much more experienced than me, to sip this and detect that we actually have a blend in front of us. It's still a good mouthfeel here, and you would expect that from 70% malt whiskey. But what they've been able to do here is bring us an integrity, flavour-forward whiskey, a hero whiskey in my book, for £29 to £32. I paid £29 for this. Just fantastic value. This is a hero, a modern day hero. We have to adjust with the times. We have to accept the fact that if our single malts are becoming more and more out of reach and more expensive, we have to start changing a lot. Why do we love single malt? Because if it's just the pure concept of a single malt, is it because it's malt whiskey? What is it that we really love about it? Is it barley forward? For me, it's barley. It's always about barley. But if we can get flavour from products like this, good value, suddenly this becomes an anxiety-free pour. Let the bubble continue to inflate. Let the market continue to fool themselves over this, investing in warehouses full of refill bourbon vanilla. That's what's happening. And all this cask investment, Ponzi scheme, pyramid scheme, fallacies that's happening just now. Let that happen. And all the while we sit back, and all we have to do for a little while is take pleasure in the whiskey creations that's coming out around concepts like this. From Ardnamurchan, from Loch Lomond, from the Thompson brothers, and from many, many more. Whiskey for us as enthusiasts, as the people in the know, the people that care, the people that bother to find out, the whiskey botherers. It's very good still. I'm putting a blended whiskey on the hero shelf. Tell me I'm wrong. Loy is saying any world whiskies going on the shelf. I dare say Wild Turkey 101 and Paul John Classic deserve a spot. You know what, Loy? You make a great observation. I'm fully focused on the Scotch whiskey. The whole field tonight is Scotch whiskey. There was a couple of whiskies that I pulled off the shelf. Cotswolds Odyssey Barley, Indri Trini, the Indian whiskey. I realised that I was diluting the message, though. I think that there's going to be scope in the future when we talk about Scotch versus the world, when we talk about anything other than Scotch, world whiskey, vPubs, whatever it's going to be. There's going to be the opportunity to shine a light on these fantastic things that's coming from world whiskey. I've already got 21 bottles sitting next to me here, 20 here, and the first one up here tonight, right? 21 to get through. I needed to focus on just what's happening in the super complex region of malt. Hope that's okay, Loy. Greg is saying Yoichi Nas for me will be there. Absolutely, Greg. Blew me away. Took it to a blind challenge in 2022. Blew everybody away there as well. I actually won the consensus for that session that night. Falscraft is saying, I'm looking forward to this blend hitting the shelves available to me, Aquavite. Class, I hope you had a chance to try it when we were at Limburg together. It was over there. We had it in the tasting. And they were pouring it too. Lowlander is saying World Hero Whiskies in 2023 episode. That's a good idea, Lowlander. You and Loy, that's a good idea. Graham Young is saying, you're not wrong, Roy. That nose is a stunner. Dollars for millilitres can't be beat. Graham, I think you picked up a bottle. I hope you took it home. And Pedro is saying, blends are a great new trend from the new gen bottlers and distillers. Exactly, Pedro. When they're done, integrity, value, quality, flavour forward. Absolutely. Whiskey Weekend Drama is saying, yes, had it in a glass today. Good whiskey, peanuts and curry spice. And the nose jumped out today. Oh, I'm getting in the nutty side. I'm looking for the curry. It is lightly spiced. Aromatic, I'll give you aromatic. Just by the power suggestion, sure, I'll go with that, Harold. Cheers to you, buddy. So now I'm left with my 6 bottles. Look at all of these here. Look at them all heroes. And look at the things that I've put to the side that are valid to talk about. And yet I've still got 6 bottles here that are what I have distilled, if you pardon the pun, down as my heroes. Let's get the easy one out of the way first. It was a hero in 2022. It was the first on the shelf here. And it's absolutely still a hero. There are times when I am in the mood for Glencadam 10 and nothing else is going to do. It's got that lovely fruit, the lovely slight light fizz, the lovely sense that it's 10 years old, but it could easily play. Sometimes in a glass is even older. And just that zero anxiety, fantastic quality, subtle, beautiful thing. It is the reason that I started or came up with that idea was inspired fully by this bottle, as I've already admitted. This will never be in its current presentation, its current value, its current quality. It will never not be in my house, even at its new price of £43 versus the old price of £32. It remains a cracker. Bottle 1 of 6 is easy for me. Sorry if that lets some of you down. Let's move on to number 2. This wasn't as easy because it's got competition now, as I've already spoken about. Port Charlotte 10, Kilchoman Machir Bay. They're up there. They're really up there. But they don't beat this yet. This is probably the best quality bottle of Ardbeg 10 I've had, and it's the most recent. An absolute stunner of a whiskey, 46% all natural. Yes, Ardbeg and elsewhere across their craziness, the opportunistic, annual, contrived, forced. Maybe they should take a break for a couple of years. I don't know, with the special releases, the committee releases and things. We're all waiting for a really good one, a real banger to come out to be worthy of this special release for the people closest to the distillery, right? The committee member. I'm not part of the Ardbeg committee, by the way, but they've not really been hitting it. And for the people that do love them, some people did love fermentation, some people did love Ardbeg and black, and some people loved Scotch, and some people loved the most recent one, which was Heavy Vapors. But what we need is consensus with these releases for the majority to accept that they're good, and that's not happened for years with Ardbeg. Let's keep this positive, because they're arguably their wee Beastie and their Anno releases, but certainly their Corrivrecken, their Ugadal, non-age statement, and this age-stated 10-year-old is fabulous liquid. And if we look at the price increase on this one, if we go back to 2020, we were getting it regularly for 45. We can still get it for 45 now, 48. I am nervous that there's an inevitable price increase coming, especially when liquid is good quality at this with 10-year age statement on it. Look across to the mainland and see people charging 65 for stuff that's brand new. I can see that there's an inevitable potential, a temptation for them to up the price on Ardbeg 10. Maybe you've got to already pay a wee bit more where you are, but right now for 45, 48, 49 pounds, this remains the guardian of Islay. It's fantastic. And aye, it's a hero. Toby Anderson is saying, good to see Ardbeg 10, the whiskey that got me down this rabbit hole. I think it's only got better. This is the second, so you might remember a bottle I used a couple of years ago now. There was a few people on doing a blind challenge, and I put Ardbeg 10 in the blind challenge, and we were all struck by how good it was, especially sipping it blind. I was nervous that I wouldn't be able to get the same experience when I replaced it again. I found some on a super special offer. I think I picked this up for £44. Got it cheap. It turned up. I was nervous that it wouldn't be as good as the last one, and it's at least as good. At least as good. Maybe arguably a wee bit even more perfumey. And I don't mean perfumey in a negative way. I mean a more perfumed kind of floral blossom and fruit. That kind of perfume. I think it's terrific. Donnerpass Whiskey, good to see you in, Tim. I hope that you were all okay during that wee earthquake you had, didn't you? Donnerpass Whiskey saying, wish glencadam 10 was more widely available in the US. When you see it's $60 plus, which in today's market is okay. Yeah, Tim, I hope you do manage to get your hands on it. Reliable as hell too. Graham Fraser is saying the advantage of being an Ardbeg committee member has been able to buy the amazing 8-year-old for discussion bottling. I've got it here, Graham. I thought it was amazing. I thought it was a real treat. A nice potential addition to the core range, but the core range is already a busy place. I think a lot of people saw that 8-year-old coming out and worried that they were maybe going to play with the idea of replacing the 10. But I think that our fears have been alleviated there. That Ardbeg 8 for discussion was very good. £57, more expensive than the 10, but of course, playful, more experimental release, more sherry casks involved, so they're more expensive. Ian Bruce is saying, my funniest birthday present was when my dear wife got me an Ardbeg 10 instead of an Aberlour. Loved it though, and so she did good. It's quite a mistake to make, isn't it, in terms of profile? I'm glad she did well. Adrienne Madrigal is here saying, I'm a little too much late. Was Speyburn 15 in the League of Whiskey Justice? No, Speyburn 15 has not been mentioned yet. Let's grab it now, Adrienne. Right on cue, my friends, right on cue. You're sick of me talking about Speyburn 15. I just love the stuff. And I don't care whether it's the lighter coloured liquid that's in a bottle or this more darker, more heavily sherried release. They're just embracing the fact that the colour's going to change and the makeup's going to change. They're putting out a fifth. Now, bear in mind that this back in 2020, I don't remember what the price was back then, but when I first started buying this, it was £55. Did I discover this in 2020? Maybe. £55, about that order. Now we're at £63, so it's gone up a bit. Still in check. Please don't let it creep up anymore. Please, Inverhouse. What you have here is a gem. What you have here is just a wonderful whiskey. I know a lot of people try this and they're expecting it to blow them on their backside because of how much I've been evangelizing this bottle. And it's not about that. It's not about being the best whiskey you've ever tasted. It's just about being a fantastic Speyside whiskey at a very, very good age. The perfect sweet spot for Scotch whiskey, honestly, mid-teens, right? Fully natural, embracing batch variation, and every single time it comes out a bite. The texture, the weight, the robustness of the spirit, the fruit, the flavour, everything is here. This wasn't on my radar when I started Hero Whiskies in 2020. It was available. I just hadn't discovered it yet. I hope you're enjoying this as much as I am. It deserves to be bought and talked about. I know my wallet was fed up of you mentioning it. Just grabbed it for £48. You grabbed Speyburn 15 for 48 quid, Jeff. Really impressed with Speyburn 15. I paid $63, says Rob Smith. That's what we're paying in pounds. Falscraft is saying Speyburn 15, a big online trader, €56.60. And Jimmy Legg is saying most of my favourite whiskey is 8 to 10 years old. You like bolder, you like smoky whiskies, you like big, heavy hitters. And I think higher ABV in a younger age will help that profile, Jimmy. Yeah, for me, the sweet spot is 15, 16 years old. Glad to have discovered it. It's in my top 6. Speyburn 15 is a hero. Jeff Whiskey saying I did indeed flash sale on Really Good Whiskey Co. maybe 2 weeks ago. Jeff, have you tried it? What do you think about it? And Jimmy Legg is calling me a lightweight. Cheers, Jimmy. Something else that was not on my radar as a Hero Whiskey in 2020, but it did arrive in 2020, and we touch upon something that somebody brought up a wee bit earlier. We have here Glenturret 12. Look at it. Very posh, very decadent, isn't it? Lalique inspired bottle here. And we have a big price tag to match too. This is a 12-year-old whiskey, and this is a 2022 release in here. I've yet to see or hear anything about 2023. I hope it's going to maintain and be fairly consistent. But we've got a fully natural product at 46% ABV. It's £65 retail. This is pricey. And I've just given a hard time to that Wolfburn for being £65 for their 10-year-old age stated. And here I'm giving this 12-year-old my top 6 Hero Award for being £65. But let's give it some context. What we have here is super sherry forward whiskey. So to get this experience from anything else, you would have to be looking at something like a Glendronach 15, whatever price you would have to pay that for that today, 75, 80 pounds, north of 80 pounds maybe. You would have to be looking at something, I believe, with a lot more age on it. Because this is not just a quick flash finish. This is really, really Scotch whiskey in a very, very old school traditional sense. The 2020 maiden release, was my favourite. It was much, much more kind of spiced, drier, more European oak forward to my palate. 2021 and 2022 stayed pretty good, but slightly more. I felt like there was just a wee bit more American oak in there. It was a wee bit sweeter, a wee bit juicier. Nothing wrong with it. It stayed consistent and it stayed amazing value. I will buy this every year it comes out, as long as it stays at that price proposition, as long as it stays at this quality, and I will talk to you about it too. Sometimes we need a wee treat whiskey. Sometimes it's going to be more expensive to produce. These European casks are becoming rarer. They're becoming much, much more expensive to replace, and it's much more expensive to produce. So don't expect to see any bargains from the likes of Tandu. Don't expect to see any bargains on the high end of Glengoyne, that type of stuff. They're all after the sherry cask experience. That's why that Bunnahabhain is such good value, right? But Bunnahabhain is a different thing. If you sip to two of these side by side, this offers a different take on sherry maturation. I think it's fantastic. I didn't know about it when I started the Hero series in 2020, but I know about it now. It's a staple, and I think it's a bit of a hero. If you're going to charge us the price, you need to step up. You need to justify it. You need to show us that it's worth it. £65 for a 12-year-old is a lot. Still, no one has brought me another £65 whiskey that delivers what that does. Arguably, Thompson Brothers did very well with their 6-year-old blend, but it's a different thing altogether. It's a different whiskey. It's a very accessible, inexpensive sherry forward whiskey, the Thompson Brothers one. This is a pure single malt. Jimmy, like I said, I bought 2 of those because of you saying it was like 80s Macallan. It wasn't. You're in trouble for it. I didn't say it was like 80s Macallan. I don't drink, and I have never drank 80s Macallan, Jimmy. I said it reminded me of old school Macallan, the old school Macallan we used to get when it was a 10-year-old and it first transitioned into Macallan 12. That's what it reminded me of. And we were talking about 40% whiskey. That was what it was reminiscent of, that old school sherry style. I don't drink 80s Macallan, buddy. I hope that you have the ability to drink 80s Macallan. And Roman is saying, I find this more overpriced than the Wolfburn 10 since they're producing more than double the amount of whiskey per year. That doesn't make much sense. That doesn't make much sense. That's just to do with scale, isn't it? I mean, if you produce double, you use double the amount of grain, you need double the amount of casks, you need double the amount of space, and double the amount of everything. Yes, it might have an incremental effect, but Wolfburn and Glenturret are doing things completely differently. Glenturret is one of the smallest distilleries in Scotland. Glenturret is also one of the most expensive to produce per litre than any distillery in Scotland. Now, that's changed a wee bit in recent times because they've moved their manual mash tun. They used to have somebody rouse the mash tun by hand, and now they've got a louter mash tun in place, so they've got automation there. They might be trying to reduce their price per litre production. But one of the most expensive places to make whiskey outside of places like Springbank and things is Glenturret. All the equipment at Wolfburn will be optimized. It'll be very modern. And if I tell you what, just taste. They're both £65. Taste Glenturret 12 against Wolfburn 10 side by side. Tell me what you want to put your £65 up on. Nice to see you in, Roman. Thanks. It's always great to have you. And Falscraft saying, looks like your pound prices are almost on par with euro prices at the moment. Fascinating. Oops, it jumped. Sorry, Klaus. Fascinating how Brexit works. Don't get me started. Jimmy Legacy and Agraviti, you're still in trouble. Doc is saying, you drank 1977 Macallan at my house. I did, buddy. I can still taste it. I'm still licking it off the inside of my teeth. Thank you. Graham Fraser is saying, given the limited Glenturret stocks Ledaig inherited on purchase, it's amazing they can still keep producing the 12-year-old, but for how much longer? Like I said, Graham, we've not heard any murmurings about the 2023 releases. I'm hoping it comes. Ian Bruce is saying, Jimmy Ledaig, you better get Doc Brown to hit 88 miles per hour to get the 80s Macallan Roy promised. And Hillswood is saying, with the Glenturret 12, you have to look past the age and price and focus on the quality of liquid. It's fabulous. Glad you're enjoying it too, Helen. That's really encouraging that you don't regret buying it. Jimmy went out and bought 2. It's probably more to do with the fits and bursts and the peaks and troughs of his availability where he is too. Pedro is saying, fully agree on the cost value of Glenturret 12. On their style of whiskey, Glenturret is hard to beat. Nobody's been able to do it. Nobody's been able to come to me and say, Roy, stop talking about Glenturret 12. The quality and flavour at £65. Here's something that beats it. Regardless of age statement, regardless of anything, it is what it is. Enjoy it while it's here. Second from last tonight, almost getting into the quiz at the end. Sorry it's taken so long. 2 bottles to go. Summarise, we'll get into the quiz. We're doing okay. This was another 2020 release. Wasn't on my radar as a hero, but it's a hero now. Doesn't have an age statement, but if you want to know how old it is, you just scan a wee barcode on the back. Of course, you know what I'm going to talk about. But this isn't one of their many, many batch releases from 2020, 2021, and 2022. This is their core range now. This is Ardnamurchan's AD. I'm getting through this. I'm getting through all of my Ardnamurchan, tearing through it. It's easy to enjoy, easy to pour. This is the one I took to bed last night and do a wee bit of reading. Loved it. Very coastal. This one is... This particular glass that I had last night was a wee bit more peaty and smoky than I remember the typical AD releases being, but I enjoyed it very much last night. 46.8% ABV and all natural, as we would expect from Ardnamurchan. Terrific stuff. An absolute modern day hero. Amazing that such a new distillery can just have this alchemy happening. I don't know how they're doing it, honestly. I've seen it, I've witnessed it. I imagine that it's lots of skill and lots of hard work and lots of effort, but also just the romantic side of me just imagines a little bit of kind of whiskey magic, serendipity and luck being involved here, but we're all grateful for it. We are all grateful for it. It's just a stunner of a whiskey. Can't wait to see how it matures and morphs going forward in the future. It doesn't matter what cask they throw it in as well. The spirit is bold enough to take on all these different casks and things, so they can be quite playful too. I know I've talked at length about Ardnamurchan. I know that we all have. But it's a wee bit like the Springbank thing. It's not hype. It's consensus. People aren't picking up Ardnamurchan and going, oh, that's awful. Why is everybody talking about it? They're picking it up and saying, oh, it's challenging, it's flavourful, it's complex, it's young, it's brash even at times. But nobody ever says it's awful. It's compelling, liquid, and I think it deserves to be a hero whiskey. It made it into my top 6. We get space there for 6, or am I going to start blocking it out? Terrific stuff. It looks like Menno is slinking off to bed. He doesn't have to host a quiz tonight, Menno. It's a shame because I think you've got a good chance of doing quite well at the quiz tonight. So I'm going to unbox and uncork something with the whiskey that I take into the quiz tonight. And this was around in 2020. It's been around for a long time now. And it is progressing. It is evolving. And it's moving forward in a different way. But I want to address this thing because it was brought up recently that I have said these things about this distillery, and it's true, I have said them. But I need to contextualize it, and I need to put it into... I need to talk about it again. The whiskey that I've got here in front of me is marvelous to witness the transition. much in the same way that we get to try these 3-year-old new whiskies from new distilleries. Try it at 4 years old and 5 years old and 6 years old, all the while knowing that that's not going to be their long-term value proposition to us. It's going to change, it's going to mature over time, isn't it? It's wonderful to witness. That's what's happening here at this distillery in Speyside. But the whiskey that they're working with is already mature. They're elevating it. They're bringing it on. They're doing everything that they can to make it better. Graham Young has bought me a Dramface Glenturret in 2021, was amazing. The 2020 inaugural maiden release 12, 15 year are still being enjoyed with a smile. Thanks again, Roy. Thank you very much, buddy, for your dram as well. Cheers to you. Jimmy Ledaig is in a petulant mood tonight, saying Ardnamurchan is young and awful. Why is everyone talking about it? I know you don't believe that, Jimmy. And Rob Smith is saying, I love the AD Ardnamurchan and I can actually buy it here. Terrific, Rob. Good for you. It's made it out to the States. This has certainly made it out into the States. And this is a very recent purchase. I went over to the shelf and there's only a wee teeny dram left in my Glenallachie 12. I think a lot of you might be surprised because it's not one that I've been evangelizing about. It's not one I've been talking loudly about, because for me, Glenallachie is so much about inherited, I don't mean to be derogatory, but I have to just say it was a product that was very much made for blends, and there wasn't much focus put into the casks, the management, the production of it. It was an efficiently made malt whiskey. That's true for so many malt whiskies right across Scotland. But Glenallachie was never loved. We could only get it by an independent bottling. Eventually, there was an official release that came out of 40%. It really wasn't that good. What's happened with Billy Walker getting in there and taking over Glenallachie is he's managed to transform warehouses full of vanilla into something much, much more compelling. And of course, that's all about the cask. Cask, 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 cask. That is an observation. That is not meant to be a negative thing. It's just something that you've got to be aware of. When Billy Walker's distillate comes out and he's got that cask management added to focus on making the best quality spirit he can, things are going to really level up. But what have we got on right now? Why have I kept this to take my 6th place as a hero whiskey? Well, let me tell you, for a couple of reasons. We've managed to find some Speysiders tonight in Craigellachie and Speyburn. But given the concentration of distilleries in Speyburn, I think the pickings are ridiculously, embarrassingly slim. I think that Speyside as a region needs to work a lot harder to bring better products. Glenallachie is managing to do that, despite the fact that they've got fairly generic, let's say, spirit to work with in the first place. Can I just share the colour of this liquid with you? We can celebrate a couple of things about this colour. I know that we talk about colour not being that important, but colour is important. It's always important, as long as we know it's natural. It's super important because it tells us so much about the whiskey, as long as we know it's not been tampered with. Look at how dark this whiskey is, and this is Glenallachie's 12-year-old. What makes this a hero for me? Well, I'm going to sip it now in the hope that I'm going to enjoy it as much as I enjoyed its sister bottle over there, which was quite a notch or two paler than this one. These are the recent batches, a bit like Deanston's 12. They're getting darker. A lot more cask influence, even in the glass. You can see how dark that is. For a 12-year-old whiskey, it's incredible. This is the cask. Obviously, the flavours I'm going to find in this glass are far more likely to be cask-led flavours. Maybe the tasting notes, if I was to sit down and make notes, maybe all the notes you could attribute not to fermentation, not to mashing, not to distillation, but to cask. That is not a bad thing. That's far better than the alternative that was being made at Glenallachie before. And it turns out that people go nuts for cask forward flavour. Despite the much darker colour, it's remarkably similar to the other Glenallachie over there. kind of takes you all over the place. It arrives kind of soft and sherry-like, and you think this is going to be all a sherry experience. Then you get a sharp blast of fruit and tannins. You get red berries. Then you get a hit of spice, cinnamon, specifically cinnamon, a wee bit of clove. But it's all, despite me getting excited there, it's all quite soft, gentle. This is an easy to recommend crowd pleaser. This is a bit more sherried. Maybe there is oak here as well. Almost like a chewy toffee, kind of resinous thing, oaky resinous thing. I don't know. Maybe a kind of virgin oak influence. Good long finish, warming spice and toffee. There's a juiciness. There is a bit of tannin, a bit of dryness to it as well. Still talking to me even now. Neck pour. Absolute neck pour. How much did I pay for this? £45. £45. It's easy for me to talk about, yeah, Glenallachie is all about the cask. I've said it in the past. I just need people to know that that's what it is in present day. What it is right now. Is it a bad whiskey? No. I think it's an excellent whiskey. Is it enough to keep an enthusiast happy? Maybe not, but I think it's enough to keep an enthusiast happily drinking. I think it's not fully engaged. It's not as engaging maybe as the Glenturret. It's maybe not even engaging as the Craigellachie, but it's getting better all the time. It's relying on casks right now, but they're bringing us a fully natural product that in a very, very, when there's hardly anything else to pick from in their region and Speyside, for very good value. And they've stuck with it. They've brought out an 8-year-old as well, full of life and vibrance. Fantastic stuff in that 8-year-old. 10-year-old cask strength is loved. Okay, it's 65, 70 pounds sometimes, but it's loved and it always sells out. They're doing fantastic things and it needs to be celebrated. I need to celebrate it too, whether it's a cask story or not. And that's why, I don't know, it might surprise a lot of you, but it makes it into my top 6 Hero Whiskey picks for this week. Graham Young is saying, oh, I did pick that up. That's your super chat. Graham, thank you very much. I hope I raised a glass for it, buddy. I hope I did. Cheers. Falsgraph is saying exactly my feelings regarding Speyside. I think he's saying I did it for a long time. I did a long time avoid to buy Speyside, except if the current reputation was especially good. It's amazing, isn't it? And Ian Bruce is saying, are some of the distilleries in Speyside just riding on the coattails of some of the other more famous or great performing brands? Well, you've got the big ones up there like Glenfiddich. You've got Maclean, of course. But most of the Speyside region is built to service blends. That's just the truth of it. You would think that they would be able to do a wee bit more. Sachin is in. Sachin Kent is in to say, do you think it's dark just because they leave a lot of sherry in the cask when they fill whiskey into it? No, I think they're using active casks. Not just active sherry casks, by the way, Sachin. I think they're using active wine casks, active sherry casks, potentially active virgin oak casks as well. There's going to be a mix of casks that goes into this 12-year-old vatting. And as time has gone on and they're putting more and more whiskey into better casks, the inevitable outcome of that is the whiskey becoming darker. Martin Fielder is saying, I quite like the Glenallachie 8. I do too, Martin, I really do. And the 10 cask strength recently released, I have to grab the 12. And Greg's Whiskey Guide is saying, not me, Roy, sorry. And Jimmy Legg is saying, tonight is really disproving any echo chamber theories. You have to like that, right? The echo chamber thing, it's one of the most rude things that we've created a space that we're allowed to say anything we want. Like Greg, I've literally read out the fact that he's saying, not me, sorry. Not me. When we're in a position where whiskey is becoming much more expensive, harder to get hold of, harder to get hold of good quality things, and somebody comes along to you and says, Roy, I can't be expensive, but I need a really good whiskey, something that I can just sit down with, or something I can gift to somebody, whatever it is. And you've got something like Glenallachie there that you can just say, go online or go to your local shop specialist and ask for a Glenallachie 12. it's just, you know, it's going to be a safe thing to recommend. I think the complexity, the things that's missing in Glenallachie right now, it needs to come from the spirit, and it can't. They can't remake the spirit again. They've done amazing things with the stock that they have. Graham Fraser is saying there are so many Speyside distilleries with fantastic spirit, but who doesn't release a core range? Classic example being Binrinnes. We know. Fortunately, we get good Binrinnes, or we have had in the past good Binrinnes from Indies. I don't know how long it's going to last, buddy. I hope it lasts a wee bit longer, Graham. So the echo chamber thing, I don't agree. I think it's rude to talk about echo chamber because we've created an environment where it's okay to have different opinion. And in fact, it's a much more valuable environment when we do have different opinions. Anyway, let's talk about price. I've given you my 6. I brought along a lot of new ones as well. We started tonight with my original list averaging out about £40 a bottle back in 2020, rising up to nearly £49 a bottle in 2023. That's a big jump in price. So it'd be nice if we could get under that £49.50 average price, right, for my top 6. And what about the new ones that I've brought along? Because I've got some expensive stuff in there. I've got the Speyburn that's in there. That's quite pricey, isn't it? I've got as we've already talked about, the Glenturret 12 in there. That's pricey too. Well, I'll read out the prices. The Glenallachie 12, £48 actually. Glenallachie 12 was 48. Did I say 45? £48. Port Charlotte 10.55. Ardnamurchan AD 45. Speyburn 15.63. Glenturret 12 65. Craigellachie 13.52. Kilchoman Machir Bay 45. The Wolfburn 10 didn't make it in. It's a £65 whisky, as I spoke about. But Bunnahabhain 12-year-old does make it in at 43. We can buy that for just a nudge under £500. And over the course, if we average it out, that works out at £53. So these new ones I'm introducing in has lifted that average price again. Has the quality of the Hero Whiskies shifted to justify that extra price? Yes, arguably. I'm not sure. But I have to say yes. Some of the whiskies that I brought to you, the Speyburn as an example, the Glenturret 12, Ardnamurchan and things. Ardnamurchan has less. A couple of them has pushed the average price up. Let's focus on the 6 that I've picked, which, by the way, include the Speyburn and the Glenturret 12. Glencadam 10's in there. Used to be 35. Okay, now it's 43. Ardbeg 10 is in there at 48. Ardna AD is in there at 45, Speyburn 15 at 63, Glenallachie 12 at 48, and Glenturret 12 at 65, giving us that collection, my top 6 at £312, giving us an average price of £47 a bottle. Sorry, £52 a bottle. In old prices, it was 47. We are now at a point that we've seen Springbank. We've seen that now go from 40 quid to £52. We're at a point that the good quality, natural, integrity, flavour forward whiskey for core range entry level, and that might include 10 and 12 years old, we are now at the 50 quid, £52 price mark. That's where we're at across the board. Some of them are in the 40s, some of them are creeping above 50s, but the average price is around £50. If we go back to as recently as 2020, that's a good £8 to £10 more expensive than it was. What do we do? What do we do? Because there's not very much we can do. There's very little we can do. We can only stress about the things that we can control. Let me say to you, don't spend your money. When prices come out and you feel like there's opportunism at play, you feel like that people are just pushing the envelope to see what they can charge, even if your curiosity makes you twitch, even if FOMO is tugging at your wallet, keep your wallet, keep it in your pocket. There's enough whiskies that I've brought to you tonight that's going to keep you happy, that's much, much cheaper. These whiskies that come across, that come out, they're brand new. Things like that Wolfburn, things that's going to continue. New whiskies are going to come along all the time. I'll be buying them and trying them and telling you whether I think that they're worth the money or not. so that you perhaps don't have to. The only thing we can control is our spend. And when the prices are too expensive, just say no. Just say no. If you do want to pay the money and you do get value out of it, that's a different proposition. I'm worried that we're starting to throw money at things that are not giving us the value back in return. Ben is saying, much debate on tonight's topic, an excellent vPub topic. Be interesting to go back and look at the comments afterwards. A lot of the comments that I've been missing, Ben, right? That's what it's all about. It's about bringing up debate. It's about talking about it. Rob Smith is saying, say no to FOMO. Absolutely. Whereas I love Rassi. Is it not a hero? Raphael, good to see you in. Raphael is in shouting for Rassi. I think it is becoming a fast hero. I love it. I was blown away at Rassi. I think that what's on the horizon for us for Rassi is super exciting for the future. Really is. It's not there yet. It's not there yet. It's getting there much faster than I expected. Peter Lee saying, Justin is absolutely burnt out. Good to see you, Peter Lee. I know you've been working away hard and the family has too. So there we go, everybody. That's my take on Hero Whiskies. You can, by all means, join the debate in the comments. I know that you've maybe not joined this live. If you're picking up on the replay, thank you so much. In the comments underneath, chime in, keep the debate going. I have started to catch up on past episodes, putting in timestamps and catching up with comments. I'll continue to do that in the hope that I can plug the gap while I was super busy and traveling and things I missed in order to catch up with your comments. But now, as we are just over the 2-hour mark, we're going to swing into the quiz at the end. I hope you're ready for some interesting quiz questions that I think are achievable for everyone tonight. Michael Henry saying, I find those bringing up echo chamber effect don't have an alternative to put forward of how to do things better. It's an easy challenge with no follow-up. Yeah, it's a bit like the Nirvana fallacy, isn't it, Michael, where people see something and they judge it based on a perfect alternative that they don't know how to achieve, that nobody knows how to achieve and certainly doesn't exist. I used to. There is a lot of bottles that you could argue is kind of echo chamber type things, a lot of opinions and things, but what we have to do is find a way to separate echo chamber from consensus, that type of thing. A couple of drams coming in at the end from Rob Nains as well. Fantastic, Rob. Good to see you. No comment there, buddy. I hope you've not. I'll try and look out for a comment if you intended to put one in. But let me just raise this wee glass of Glenallachie just to say thanks, buddy. Cheers to you. And Jimmy Legg has bought me a wee dram just to say sorry if I've been giving you a hard time. You're still my favourite duff. Well, in the world of so many duffs, Jimmy, I'll take that as a huge and massive compliment. Buddy, we know each other so well, even just through this platform. We're going to be able to shake hands later this year, of course. I don't take any offence, and I'm very grateful of all your contributions, even if you have to challenge me and take the opposite side, as we've been talking about tonight. I think it's important to talk about it. Cheers, Jimmy Legg. Falsgrave is saying, lol, Jimmy, I think your antics are well known. Let's pull in this quiz at the end. Like I say, I'm pretty confident that this is a good one tonight in terms of I'm hoping that somebody can get over the line with a nice wee 10 out of 10. Remember, the pass mark is only over 5. You don't need to share your score. You can keep it to yourself. Just play along quietly or in the live chat or on the replay. If you want to share your score, you're more than welcome to. I'll try and shout it out. Of course, it's always multiple choice, and it's always just for fun. There will be an easy start followed by some banana skins, and obviously we finish out with an ass hat at the end. Good luck, everybody. Ian Bruce is asking if it's 11 out of 11 tonight, like Menno's quiz. And I don't think so, unless I've made a mistake like Menno did. It's not been intentional for me to make it 11 questions. I'm sure it's 10, and Mike Molasses is saying 10 out of 10, unlikely. Well, good luck, everybody. I hope you enjoy. Petehead is using the starter of the quiz. The start line tonight is masochism. Good luck, everyone. If I was to not end with a quiz at the end, I think there would be a bit of mutiny. Question 1, best of luck. Which of these distilleries were built upon or close to previous distilleries of the same name? A. Wolfburn, B. Ledaig, or C. Rosebank. Which of those distilleries were either built directly upon or very close to another distillery of the exact same name? Sugar Kitty saying he always tells us it's so easy. Well, I didn't say it was so easy, but I think that it's achievable. I think that it's possible. Elsewhere is saying A, Molasses is saying C, and Snorri Lennis is saying A and B. Fantastic. Looks like a new name, Snorri, and I hope I'm pronouncing it well, buddy. Gabriel Welding is saying A, B, and C. You know the drill. Tonight, nobody will get a 0. Nobody's going to go home with a donut because all of those distilleries, Wolfburn, Ledaig, and Rosebank, were built upon or fairly close to another previous existing distillery of the same name. Everybody gets a point to start the quiz at the end tonight. It doesn't always happen, just occasional. Question 2. Which distiller currently sponsors the Open Golf Championship with annual special releases? Is it A, Diageo, B, William Grant & Sons, or C, Loch Lomond Group? Who currently sponsors the Open? Try not to type the answer in. Greg's Whiskey Guide is saying another giveaway. Well, it always starts a wee bit earlier. Sorry, a wee bit easier in the early questions. Absolutely, all of you have kicked this out the park. It is indeed Loch Lomond Group. I think this might be their last year. I'm not sure. Maybe another year to go. Maybe this is the last year sponsoring the Open. They always come out with 1 or 2 special releases. Question 3. Which of these lesser seen distilleries have a current flora and fauna release? Which of these lesser seen distilleries has a current flora and fauna release? Is it A, Glenelgan, B, Glenspey, or C, Glenburgie? Lots of 2 out of 2s. Looking good. Everything is healthy so far. Roy Ovimir in Norway is still here. Good to see you, buddy. Oh, this is a couple of splitting things, maybe. Flora and fauna release, a current flora and fauna release I'm looking for. It's either A, Glenelgan, B, Glenspey, or C, Glenburgie. Current is the question, not sure. B. There are 11 current releases from Diageo's Flora and Fauna. And anybody that's answered B has got it right. Glenelgan has now graduated to one of the extended classic malts. It's a 12-year-old. Glenburgie is not owned by Diageo and currently has never had a Flora and Fauna release. So it's obviously B for Glenspey. Anybody that's answered B, give yourself a point. And we'll go on to question 4. Doing well so far. Kilchoman, Tomatin, have just announced what? Now, this is Scott did talk about this. And yeah, it's amazing I've not brought it up already because they've... I'm giving it away. He teased it last week, but couldn't tell us the details. What have Tomatin just announced? A new 12-year-old release at 46% ABV. B, a new creation series, number 6 in the creation series. Or C, they've announced a huge expansion of their peated malt production, the stuff that goes to make Kilchoman. What have Tomatin just announced? You might see a Dramface logo here in the corner. Those of you who are regular readers of Dramface might have picked this wee news article up. Often people look in the review section of Dramface. I think that's our main point of existing. I think we should be right, but they forget that there's a feature section and a news section too. But most of you have absolutely covered this spot on. As much as I was bullying him last week, he's not committed to increasing the peated production for Kilchoman. They've only just released Creation Series number 5, the Andean Oak that we shared last week. But no, They've brought out a 12-year-old at 46%. Very interesting to see an age-dated Kuboken come out. I have not tried it yet. It was only announced earlier this week. It's not in time for me to have it for this week. My problem with it is I'm reluctant to buy it. It's £65. It might suffer from some of the dynamics that I'm talking about earlier tonight. £65. I need to be proved wrong. Maybe it's worth £65. I need to buy it in order to let you know what I think. I think it's a bit expensive on paper. A for a 12-year-old Kuboken. I've just brought out a brand new 12-year-old. Question 5 is always the image. Brand new set of images sent through from my pal, Graham Fraser, who's always handy with a camera and generous with the sharing of the products of the camera. Tom Elmer is in, just spotting you tonight, Tom. Good to see you in. We might have, might be masochistic, but does that make you sadistic? That's too tongue twisty. No, I'm not a sadist. I enjoy even the tricky questions are hopefully they bring something that we can learn. Are we looking at A, Arran over at Loch Lomond? Are we looking at B, Ardnamurchan? Or are we looking at C, Annandale? A, Arran and Loch Lomond on the Isle of Arran. B, Ardnamurchan over on the Western Peninsula. Or C, Annandale in the Lowlands. Falsgraph is saying not too much above 50. 65 is a lot above 50. A lot above 50. Sorry, that's a third, 33%, no more, above 50. No, just less, 30% above 50. Graham Fraser saying, don't wait for my answer. He's only scoring himself out of 9, of course, because he's provided the questions. Of course, most of you have got it absolutely spot on, despite the fact that that left-hand pagoda is a wee bit obscured in this image. Like I said, we reached peak pagoda when they built Arran in 1995. This is Loch Lomond from Isle of Arran. Question 6, starting to get a bit trickier now. Which distillery provided a bottling of 1,000 bottles of 18-year-old single malt to mark the king's coronation? Which distillery marked it with an 18-year-old? Was it A, Royal Bracla, B, Royal Loch Lomond, or C, Lefroig? 1,000 bottles of 18-year-old single malt to mark the king's coronation. £360 a bottle if you wanted to partake. I don't know how hard they were to get a hold of. It's probably pretty tasty malt, if I'm honest. But at £360, they can keep it. Let's be honest, they could have put cold tea in the bottles. Not many of them are going to be opened. It's a coronation bottling. They're all going to be stashed as a commemorative keepsake, I think. Greg's Whiskey Guide is suggesting who hasn't offered a commemoration bottling. Yeah, I think this is a much more official thing though, Greg. Absolutely. Most of you are getting this absolutely right. It was indeed Royal Loch Lomond. On the Balmoral estate, of course, very close by. Royal Loch Lomond gave an 18-year-old at £360, 1,000 bottles. Question 7. Ailsa Bay is a lowland malt distillery within the Girvan site in Ayrshire. It previously housed a malt distillery before Ailsa Bay between the years of 1966 and 1975. What was it called? So before Ailsa Bay, pot stills, malt distillery on site at Girvan's grain complex, there was a previous long lost distillery. Only ran for 9 or 10 years. What was it called? A, Ladyburn. B, Little Mill. C, Lochside. I'm not sure. This isn't actually a banana skin. I shouldn't have left a banana skin in there, Rob. So I think that it's maybe a bit misleading. It's not really a banana. A banana skin is something that you would think you know the obvious answer to, but be careful, pause for a second and think about it, reread the question. A banana skin is meant to be just a wee bit tricky, but actually this is fairly straightforward based on knowledge. So arguably the banana skin shouldn't be there. Most of you have got absolutely hit the nail on the head. It is, of course, Ladyburn Little Mill was just a bit west of Glasgow, owned by the Loch Lomond group, and Lochside is stuck away out on the east end of the country, somewhere between just north of Dundee. 8. Tamdhu's famous railway station, Dalbeely. Now, I never know if I'm pronouncing Dalbeely correctly, but Dalbeely was used as what until 2009? What was the train station? After it was a train station, of course, used for at Tamdhu. A, it was a filling store. B, it was a visitor centre. Or C, a customs officer's house. Mike is pointing out that that was an anti-banana skin. Banana skin. I like it. Lots and lots of 7 out of 7. Really good performance. Graham's got a 7 out of 6. Terrific, buddy. Look at the beautiful set of 7 out of 7. Magnificent barflies celebrates Sugar Kitty. Terrific stuff. Desi Vleeland is in. Fantastic. Desi thinks that it was used as a visitor centre, along with Greg's Whiskey Guide. Too slow. Good to see you, Rob. Grain of malt. A grain of malt. That's got to be Mr. McGoran, isn't it? Surely. I think it's him. Also thinks it's a visitor centre. Absolutely spot on. It was not a filling store. It was not a customs officer's house. Up until 2009, if you went to Tamdhu, I didn't even know they had a visitor centre back then. You would have visited the train station as the visitor centre. Well done. We're doing very well tonight. Lots of strong. Jimmy's suggesting he's got 3 out of 8. That's nonsense, Jimmy Legg. Question 9. Which of these companies was the first European ownership entry into the Scotch whisky industry in 1973? So things are getting a wee bit tricky now. The first European ownership in Scotch whisky happened in 1973, and it was at the hands of who? A, Distilleria Cicrianza or DIC in Spain. B, Pernod in France. Or C, Remy Cointreau in France. I don't want to make a mess of my French pronunciation, especially when we've got Greg still in. Pernod, Remy Cointreau. Or was it A, Distilleria Cicrianza, DIC in Spain? Looks like a record crowd of 8s. What the hell is the asshat going to be, says Sugar Kitty. Yeah, I'm hoping. It would be nice to have a vPub where loads of folk break their duck and get 10 out of 10. But the asshat is always going to mean it's a difficult challenge. How did you even think to ask this question? Says Jimmy Legg. Because I like to read about whiskey, Jimmy. And these things pop up and I think, ooh, well, this is saying my streak is about to end. Yes, there is a banana skin here. I think this is going to be quite tricky. A lot of you have got it, though. The correct question is not in France, it's Spain. Amazingly, the Lochside distillery that was just mentioned in the previous or a couple of questions ago, that was actually bought by DIC, Distilleria Cicrianza in Spain, way back in 1973. Now, the distillery ended in the 1990s. It's long gone. But Lochside was under Spanish ownership, and it was the first time that European ownership happened in Scotch whisky. How things have changed today. So there we go. As we roll into the asshat at the end, let's call out. Let's see who's hanging on with a 9 out of 9. That question probably took out some of you, but Martin Fielder is still there. Whiskey with Molly Ben's on a 7. Peter Box is on a 9. Fantastic, as well as Tom. Whiskey and Wine Trails, good to see you. Roman has got a 9 out of 9. Going to sleep now and never watch the replay. Just take it, Roman. Just take the asshat and go. Nicholas is on a 9 out of 9 as well. It's Rob Too Slow 9. Where's Royal Vermeer on 9. Desi Vleeland on 9. Thorsten N. Good to see you, Thorsten. Looks like a new name on a 9. Bruno Martin's on 9 out of 9. Chris Pollack just short on an 8. Pedro. Pedro was too obvious for a banana skin. Daniel Caballero is on 8. Any other 9s? Hellswood. Hellswood, sorry, is on 9 out of 9. And Papa Q is on 9 out of 9. Peter Lee, 9 out of 9. Aris is in. Aris Moose is in on 9 out of 9. Grain of Malt, 9 out of 9. Lots of 9s. We're in good shape. We're in great shape for a potential 10 out of 10 for a lot of you tonight. Here's the asshat at the end. It's always an asshat, isn't it? A According to the 2023 Malt Whisky Yearbook, 63 companies own 134 currently producing malt distilleries in Scotland. That works out about 2 per. But how many companies actually own just 2 distilleries? Is it about the same as A, distilleries operating in Dufftown? Is it B, distilleries operating worm tubs? Or is it C, distilleries operating and proposed on Islay? This is where all the hate comes. That's exactly what an asshat question is intended to be. Brutal, difficult, awkward, obtuse, obnoxious. You've got to know the answer to 2 things at least in order to answer it. But a 10 out of 10 is not just given away. It's got to be worked for. According to the 2023 Malt Whisky Yearbook, there are 63 companies in ownership of Scotch malt distilleries. Given that there are 134 distilleries, that works out that as an average about 2 per owner. But how many owners actually own just 2 distilleries? Does that number match the same as the distilleries currently operating in Dufftown? B, the distilleries operating currently worm tubs? Or C, distilleries operating and proposed on the island of Islay? Jimmy's saying he's been called all of those things. Obnoxious, obtuse. Okay, everyone. The answers are in. The answers are in. And I'm amazed that so little of you are actually going to have made it over the end. Jimmy Legg is answering A for distilleries operating in Dufftown. I can tell you that distilleries operating and proposed on Islay is somewhere in the order of, it's a moving target, but currently, best of my knowledge, about 13. Distilleries operating worm tubs, somewhere in the order of 19. Distilleries operating in Dufftown, 6. There are 6 owners who own 2 distilleries right now. They are Loch Lomond, J&A Mitchell, Glenmorngie or Louis Vuitton, Angus Dundee, Isle of Arran, and Gordon and MacPhail. Only 6 of the 63 owners actually own 2 distilleries. That's going to have taken out a lot of you. A lot of you. Let's see what effect has that made. Martin Fielder celebrating a 10 out of 10. Roman, it's Skovranek. Roman, I'm going to make a mess of your name, but it doesn't matter because you're celebrating a 10 out of 10, as is Mr. McGoran has got a 10 out of 10 as well. Fantastic. So good to see you in, buddy, and so glad that you've managed a 10 out of 10 as well. Quite a few other people too. Hellswood, 10 out of 10. Sugar Kitty, 10 out of 10. Who am I missing? Where's Roy Vermeer on a 10 out of 10? Peter Box, I'm sunk, 9 out of 10. I'm so sorry, Peter. Nikolai Nikolov has got a 10 out of 10. He's celebrating. Pedro Menezes, my second 10 out of 10. Haha, thanks, Ingvard. I read that today, 4 out of 10. I'm sure you did, Jimmy. Desi slipped up at the end. So sorry, Desi. I hope you're well. Pete Head, the same. 10 out of 10 for Roman. He's celebrating a grain of malt to Senior Beauty. Whiskey and Wine Trails, 9 once again. Nearly there, Tom. Maybe next time. Helen is celebrating her 10. Good one. 8 out of 10 for Daniel Caballero. Good score. Quite happy with 10 out of 10. How can you not be? Says, oops. Bruno Martins. Papa Q, 10 out of 10 as well. Terrific stuff. Congrats to all on the 10 out of 10, says Greg's Whiskey Guide, and Too Slow is saying 10 out of 10. Aris is saying, oh my God, I finally got a 10. Whiskey with Molly Ben, well done to the 10 out of 10s. I think he got one too. Well done, Ben. Fantastic stuff. I'm hoping that I'm getting everybody lots and lots of barfly emojis being thrown around to celebrate a good score in the quiz at the end. Terrific stuff. I hope you don't mind these solo sessions. I hope you don't mind that I bring up these things to talk about the things that trouble me, the things that excite me, the things that are on my whiskey obsessed mind constantly. I can't think. I've only sipped 3-4 drams tonight, maybe 4. Good, because I've got a busy day tomorrow. It's always amazing to me that you're willing to all hang out with me and play these really brutal quizzes at the end. But it's nice to just have a space and talk about and think about whiskey. It's nice to have community on it. It's nice to have guests on it. And it's nice for me just to be able to sit here and be indulged by you all to host a solo session from time to time. I hope that next week we get together with Chad and Sara over. It's Bourbon night, and I hope we're able to talk about visiting and touring Scotland and I hope that their experience was a very, very positive one while they were here. I look forward to that. In the meantime, I've very much enjoyed my Thursday night hanging out with all of you beautiful whiskey folk and dedicated barflies. I'm looking forward to doing the same a week from tonight. Congratulations to all of you, so many of you that managed a 10 out of 10 tonight. Wonderful to see. I love the celebration. Terrific stuff. I'll raise a glass and remind you all that you're very dearly loved and say, Sláinte mhath. Cheers, whiskey folk.